Highwoods Institute, looking to advance in accounting, business management, or digital proficiency. From ACCA to ICB qualifications and workplace proficiency, Highwoods Institute sets you on the path to success. At Highwoods Institute, we offer a diverse range of programs tailored just to meet the needs of today's professionals. So, join the ranks. Achieving your career goals has never been more accessible. Take the first step toward a brighter tomorrow. Enroll now at Highwoods Institute and start a secured future. Visit us at highwoodsinstitute.org or at 92 Pademba Road, Freetown to learn more. Highwoods Institute, the premier destination for career-focused education.
You ready for the Zoom meeting today with the investor then?
Yes, boss. I'm ready for the meeting today. And I don't download all the reports they sent to me on the internet.
Make sure so you get super connection, because I don't want one problem during the meeting.
Everything is okay. Everything is fine.
Counting on you, even though we're not in the same office. I will be with you every step of the way.
Are you looking for somewhere to have a good sip? Well, look no further, cause Wine and Spirit Beach Bar is the best hangout spot in town and the right place to wine and dine with your friends and family. We offer a refreshing escape with air-conditioned comfort to keep you cool while you sip on your favorite drinks. From fine wines to top-shelf spirits, we've got it all for you. And guess what? We deliver right to your doorstep. For more information, call us on the numbers 099 683 899 or 030 869 750 or visit us at 109 Peninsula Road, Godwich. To place your orders or book your perfect chill spot, Wine and Spirit Beach Bar is the spot for you.
Christmas come only once a year, but not drink too much rum. No way, no way. Feliz Navidad.
The board, executive director, management and staff of Legal Aid Board Sierra Leone wishes the people of Sierra Leone a Merry Christmas and a prosperous New Year. As the board continues to make justice accessible to the less privileged, remember not to be in conflict with the law as you move about this festive season. Don't drink alcohol and drive, and don't overspeed. Be at peace with your neighbor. Help someone in need if you can. Above all, enjoy responsibly and be a good citizen. Salome, Big Pass we honor.
I wanna wish you a Merry Christmas. I wanna wish
In the shadows of a modern world lies a network of industries where they sustain a way of life, like education, health, agriculture, and human capital development. Mining, the one key factor to the growth and development of Salone. Leon Rock Metal Group, the hope of the country's mining industry. Don't put yourself up and let Big Mac way other companies for copy, as mining don't be the backbone of global progress.
As they come to a close, they take with time off for look at the journey embarked by the company, the challenges faced, as well as the triumph celebrated by the achievements of the company in the operational activities. They follow me for actually look at some of the key facilities where they get around at the mines.
This year, the big news, we start for export 62% of ore from Chonkolili, and we also don't start for mine the saprolite layer. We no company not do it na Chonkolili. So we achievement this year is very tremendous and we're proud of what we don't do.
The Chonkolili mining sites are an important pillar at the whole projects of the Rock Metal Group. We don't bring the whole life to to the entire project. This year, the company undertakes series of developments. One among them are the 12 million tons processing plant at Sabine Hills. We're aiming for process the saprolite. The 30 million tons, now 1A, we're aiming for process the magnetite. The HFO power station, 49 megawatts plus. We're aiming for lights, the entire facility, at the mine site.
This year we set a plan for complete most of the key facilities for complement the mining activity on site. And key among them are the Lumbara front, with a new mining depository start this year. And that will be for mine the PSO. Then also will be commissioned the 12 million tons plant. What it needs to do for we is for optimize the grade from the normal 7% to 62% FE grade. Then we also commissioned the 30 million tons plant. We will be fully functional in January next year. There are 3 production lines, 10 million tons each. And then they target a very high grade, which is upward of 64% FE. So that could be 65, 66% as the case may be. And lastly, we also get a power plant, we are the 43 plus 5.4 megawatts, which is close to 49 megawatts we commission at Tonkolili. And then the day for power, the 12 million tons plant and other facilities within the mine site.
The railway, and the lifeline way connects the mining and the port sites. The 192 plus kilometer rail line run a 9 chiefdom within 3 districts.
This year, the Leon Rock Mining Company done bring 10 new locomotives in order for us to get a smooth and fast running from the mine to the port site. The company don't try back for us to get a large West African logistics center. Also this year, the company don't create a new generating power station. We are the HFO, we will run at low cost with high efficiency. The company don't make it possible for us to get new barges then. We they transport the materials then from the Pepel port to the OJV. The Leon Rock Mining Company don't make it possible again for us to get ship loader.
The company don't experience massive growth within this year with international standards. Early this year, the company don't pay the Community Development Agreement Fund to mining communities and now the Tonkolili.
The relationship to the community currently is the best in the country. We don't enjoy 4 years of peace with no protest, demonstration, strike action from the communities then where we operate. And that is as a result of the policies then where we get for support community development. We CDA payment, where we don't pay now for 3 consecutive years and on time. And this year we pay over 50 billion loans. And next year, I think the people of Salone will be shocked at what we do. But this is not only about paying money. We follow what the money to do. We don't contribute in education, health, water and sanitation, women empowerment, you name it. So we relationship with we own community, currently other mining companies, and they even go for land for see how we build that kind of, happy relationship and respectful relationship with communities. When it comes to compliance, Leon Rock now one of the most compliant company. Even when it comes to statutory payment like license fee, AI license, NRA, PE and all these things, they top. In fact, we even get award last year for performance, from NRA. This year we also get award as the best mining company in Africa from the African Development Conference through the local content agency.
As we desire for more resources, they grow, the future of mining may change. New methods and technologies they develop for reduce the environmental impacts and with renewable energy sources. This year, 2024, according to the Human Resource Manager at the Leon Rock Metal Group, a workforce don't grow to 7,000 plus. With the plenty good things the way don't happen, these don't reinforce the belief say Leon Rock Metal Group don't do well at the mining industry in the country as a whole. With the corporate social responsibility, Leon Rock Metal Group don't support over 70 groups and organizations all over the country inside this year and promote government initiative with a team of dedicated staff within it.
the leadership of the company, the president of the company, and the CEO way in Besna Saloya, so they will see the way we will implement CSR. You will see, say we need to do one like for the company just get in. Because we go in areas that we like 100 or 200 kilometers from us, or the Kaila home, you know, Puje home, all the way in a bond, team on their side, and they would see say salon. We want for look Salo as a holistic town that we can work together with the government for development. Then make we footprint they all over the country. Now, of course, you know, for the second time, we form the Sierra Leone Premier League.
As we say bye-bye to 2024, we will go before with the lesson that we will learn with the hope for a better future. Together we will enter 2025 with renewed hope and strength.
You ready for the Zoom meeting today with the investor then?
Yes, boss. I'm ready for the meeting today. And I don't download all the reports they sent to me on the internet.
Make sure so you get super connection, because I don't want one problem during the meeting.
Everything is okay. Everything is fine.
Counting on you, even though we're not in the same office. I will be with you every step of the way.
Are you looking for the finest selection of wines and spirits? Visit CP Supermarket at 109 Beach Road, where 90% of our shelves are stocked with the best brands of wine from around the world. Whether you are planning a celebration or a relaxing evening, we've got the perfect wine for you. Plus, we have a private relaxation space, the perfect spot to own while exploring your exclusive collection. Experience convenience, quality, and comfort all in one place. Come to CP Supermarket today and have your best collection of wine. For booking, call us on the numbers 099 683 899 or 030 869 750, or visit us at 109 Peninsula Road, Godrich. Visit CP Supermarket today for the best collection of wines.
witnessed this year, and we witnessed this Christmas. I think it's a moment for celebrate, a moment for thank you to the Almighty that we witnessed this event. I want to say Merry Christmas and a prosperous 2025 to all my colleagues at the Sierra Leone Broadcasting Corporation, starting with the Director General, my boss, Josephine Kamara, and all the other directors and heads and all colleague members of the corporation. I want to wish you all a Merry Christmas and a prosperous 2025. And I hope the coming year will be better for we all. And I'm going to bless you and continue for showering blessing on me. Also, I want to send this to all those who can follow me, those who are my fans who normally like to see me. I want to say Merry Christmas and a prosperous 2025 to all of you. I'm not forgetting also my family, my wife, Aisha, and my kids. I wish you well. I wish you a blessed 2025. And we hope the incoming year go better than the year where they done so. To the people of Sierra Leone, at SLBC, we are here to serve you, and we are going to serve you always. A Merry Christmas and a blessed 2025.
We wish you a Merry Christmas. We wish you a Merry Christmas.
The year has come to an end. I mean, 2024, or I can say, is gradually coming to an end. So, as the public service broadcaster, I want to extend or to say Merry Christmas to every Sierra Leonean. I mean, especially fans and friends of the SLBC. I want to say thank you so much for being with us throughout the year 2024. I also want to extend citizens' greetings to board, management and staff of the SLBC. I mean, colleagues here. I want to say thank you so much also for your hard work in keeping the television going. I also want to say Merry Christmas and a bright and prosperous 2025 to the government of Sierra Leone. I mean, the three arms of government, the executive led by the president, the judiciary led by the chief justice, and the legislative head by the speaker. Every member of parliament, every government worker in this country, every minister, every council, I mean all the councils in this country, I want to say Merry Christmas and a bright and prosperous 2025. I also want to say, special Merry Christmas to my family and also friends for your support.
To thank God for this time, for His goodness throughout the year. He has been faithful, and it has been a season of God's divine blessing. And I want to say season's greetings to all our listeners, our viewers, our texters, contributors to programs on SLBC. Merry Christmas and a blessed 2025 to you all. And I also want to wish my colleagues, the management, the entire SLBC prosperous 2025. And to my family, the Gaba family, and to every Sierra Leonean from the SLBC, will love you and continue to keep glued to this frequency. Your voice, my voice. Happy New Year in advance.
We all know say Christmas don't reach, and time like this, we must send Christmas wishes to we loved ones and even compatriots. First of all, I want to wish His Excellency the President, the Vice President, Chief Minister, First Lady, all ministers, all MPs, and all the working class, all my fans and loved ones, I want to wish you a Merry Christmas. And a special one to go to my wife and family, we in London. And also wish close friends, we in a salon. I want to wish you all a Merry Christmas. And I want to wish my landlady and my Roberts, and of course my neighbor, Bakanu and Mami Kanu. I want to wish you a Merry Christmas. Mr. Williams and Mrs. Williams. And I want to wish the Managing Director of Hokel Commercial Bank, Ekundayo Dr. Ekundayo Gilpin. I want to wish you Merry Christmas. Maureen Walters and Jordan and Gerard. And also I want to wish Amelia Hill. I want to wish you Merry Christmas and a prosperous New Year. And I want to wish Jatu Thomas, Michael, and all, if I forget your name, I want to wish you a Merry Christmas.
Min Atiliko Ma, I wish all Sierra Leoneans there a Merry Christmas and a bright and prosperous 2025. Make I also take this opportunity for wish my family, especially my mommy, Matuko Ma, my sister them, Awana to Abiono, Jatu, Mariama, my brother Jimmy, and also my special daughter and grandson. I pray say as we enjoy this festive period, law will be law abiding, and dear are the big people them. Where you know say you don't drink, no drive. And like how the security sector don't tell for them banger business, yeah, no careful how the fire banger. We therefore take into account say some people are sick, and we find it in the tendency they for make the pressure or then something go up. Once more, I wish all Sierra Leoneans there a Merry Christmas and a bright and prosperous 2025.
Firstly, I would like to say a big thank you to God Almighty for keeping me throughout the thick and thin of 2024, and also for the life of my family. Though it has not been easy, but I would say a big thank you to him up there. I would like to say a Merry Christmas to everybody, my family, especially my daughter, Mary Kukuka, His Excellency President, the Vice President, the First Lady, and to my Director General, the Deputy Director General, and to everybody within Sierra Leone and the whole at large. I would like to say a Merry Christmas and a hearty warming 2025 in advance.
On behalf of myself, the board, management and staff of the Sierra Leone Broadcasting Corporation, to wish all viewers, all our loving viewers, that we know 2024, as I was describing it, it was a year of hope. As we are going to 2025, what is playing in our mind presently is what 2025 will look as. But I want to assure each one of us that if you have faith, you believe, you put your hope and trust to God, just believe that God, with His infinite mercy, will do for you things that you never requested for. To my daughter, I want to say to you, a Merry Christmas and a prosperous 2025. To my landlord and landlady, Mr. Papa, and his entire family at number 19 Thompson Bay off Wilkinson Road, I want to wish you all a Merry Christmas and a prosperous 2025.
We wish you a Merry Christmas.
And the census greetings to the Director General, Madam Josephine Fatima Kamara, the Deputy Director General, Mr. Mohamed Asmi Uba, the Director of Finance, Mrs. Alexandra Blake, and all directors and staff members of the SLBC. To my church, the National Pentecostal Mission Sierra Leone, my Bishop Benjamin Boyno Bangura, in Deputy, Reverend Suri Mansare, the Superintendent them, Reverend Mary S. Kamara and Reverend Makinon Kamara, the Director of Evangelism, Reverend John S. Mansare, Director of Education, Reverend Jane Bangura, and all Reverend and elders, members of the National Pentecostal Mission. A happy Christmas and New Year in advance. To my family at home and abroad, I wish we all a happy Christmas and a New Year in advance. God bless you all.
I want to say Merry Christmas and a prosperous 2025 to the entire membership, to the entire staff of the Sierra Leone Broadcasting Corporation, especially to me DG and to Madam Lois when they on leave, and to Tilly and to all the membership and all the staff of the Sierra Leone Broadcasting Corporation, and not forgetting to my beloved wife Mrs. Emrika Bangura and my entire family, we picking them all. I want to say a Merry Christmas and a prosperous 2025. Not forgetting to my friends also at home and abroad. I want to say Merry Christmas. I love you.
We are all aware it is a festive season, cheerful, where we interact well with ourselves, our neighbors, family members, our friends, and even strangers. I mean, you be careful to interact well with whoever you meet, regardless of knowing or not having known him before. But whatever the case, I just want to wish every single person in your own little corner a very peaceful season, because the season incorporates the end of year, December, last week in December, and the first week in the new year, which are both sensitive moments of merriment, joy, pleasure, excitement, and safety, of course. Well, I wish everybody a peaceful prayer day on each of those days. Safety, joy, comfort, peace, and of course, enjoying and having hope for continuity of better days of all times. I wish that for, I need not mention names because it's a festive season for everybody, it incorporates every person. I wish you all
I want to send a special greeting, Christmas greeting and New Year to my family, especially to my mama, then my two daughters there. Then especially to me, loving one, my special person, yourself. And this special one I go to Pastor at Celestial Church of Christ. To all my relatives, friends, and anybody so far are not remember you, but this one a special greeting to you.
I do wish the entire management and all women and women at SLBC Merry Christmas and a bright and prosperous, if not double prosperous, 2025 to all man, and even to the government. Well, that's another thing I only the corner where they doing your own for make this country also move before all. I say Merry Christmas. May Papa God in grace continue for endow all man who say defend himself na this country also. So this year, by next year now, we all go to say Hosanna, Hosanna.
For sending special Christmas wish to my daddy, Mr. Ali Samora and Esther, my brother Malamia Samora of the National Fire Force. So your Samora, and of course, my lovely son, Daniel Howard, Sola Kanukonte, and all lovers of sports, Nasalo. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year till now.
We wish you a Merry Christmas.
Season's greetings, Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. We pray that God will make us, we don't close this year, we all go enter a new year with well body, with long life and prosperity. And I wish you all the best for you and your family. And please, stay glued to SLBC, because SLBC, now your voice, my voice.
Season greetings to all we customers and families there. I want to send this message to families and brothers and listeners and viewers and that wish everybody a happy Christmas and a prosperous New Year, and especially to me one and only lovely wife, Mrs. Kadiatu Matia Kuruma, presently at the Puloko Government Hospital. I want to send a special message to even my family, me picking them all at home. Your voice, my voice. I wish you all a prosperous 2025.
And a Happy New Year. We want
Soon it will be Christmas Day. Merry Christmas, everybody. Mina Esther Maria Masako, and Mina a reporter, a presenter, a news anchor, and also a radio producer, Yasona SLBC. I want to send Christmas message to my lovely family, the Durin, the Bangura, and also the Sako family. I want to send special Christmas message to the Coca family and all my family members them within our 15 Philip Street and also 4 Nico Street. I want to send special Christmas message to my lovely son, Miles Bangura, where they attend Makalga Daycare and Primary School. I want to wish everybody in our salon, with viewers and SLBC, and also the one that we done they deal with me throughout this year. I want to wish you a Merry Christmas and a prosperous 2025 in advance.
We wish you a Merry Christmas.
I want to wish me mama a Merry Christmas and a prosperous New Year. I want to wish me daddy, Mr. Moses Oiba Kamala, my sister them, Elizabeth, Susan, Michaela, Fatima, and to everybody as well. A Merry Christmas and a prosperous 2025. Cheers.
We wish you a Merry Christmas.
I want to thank God Almighty for keeping us thus far since the year started, January the 1st. So now, I think God needs to be praised because He has continued in protecting us, giving us travel mercies, providing our daily bread, and also ensuring that disaster or problem do not affect me and my family. We want to be grateful to God for that. Friends, I want to encourage you to maintain peace, love and harmony, journey through in happy mood, reflect on the coming of our Lord Jesus Christ, and also maintain law and respect the peace. Give out to friends in this period, loved ones, whatever you can, just share and make more friends. I want to take this time again to wish my friends and fans across the country a Merry Christmas and a prosperous 2025. As we journey through that year, we are deeply hoped of new challenges and new opportunities ahead. I want to wish my family, especially my wife, Grace Deborah Madi Wise, our children, our parents from either side. I want to wish you a success and a Merry Christmas and a prosperous 2025.
First of all, I want to thank God for keeping me safe, sound, and healthy to see this Christmas. And again, I want to send these Christmas wishes to my beloved mom, Teresa French, and my siblings and all my loved ones, and also to all colleagues of the SLBC. I pray that God continues to keep us sound, safe, and healthy to see many more years in good health. Merry Christmas and a prosperous 2025.
We bring to you.
Well, tell God thank you. We within the festive season and Christmas they come and Christmas don't come. Well, we done this year
with long life and well body. We pray God continue to protect and guide me. I send this Christmas and New Year wish to me mama, Wina Mami Safia to Sako, and all the Ture family, Ture members now from Kalangba of course, and all my Madingo people from Kalangba and Madina. We hope we celebrate this Christmas with long life everybody and the new year. To the presidents of this republic, everybody else, Sierra Leoneans, love you, stay safe, keep the peace. Bye bye.
As we all know, say this is a festive season, I want to send Merry Christmas to my mama, my Ikama, and my siblings them, where they number 6 Robin Street, Mountain Court. And I also want to send Merry Christmas to my church members them, and Winner Shop International and Local Baptist Church. And to every Sierra Leonean them, especially when we always tune to SLBC. Merry Christmas and prosperous 2025. Much love.
I want to send the Christmas greeting to the president of this country. I know say himself now that one week always list to me. I want to say Merry Christmas to the Director General of SLBC and to the head of radio, Winner David Akaba. Merry Christmas to everybody and my loved ones there.
I'm wishing all customers, clients, and staff of the SLBC a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, especially the Director General and the Director of Commercial. May we all see the 2025 in God's name. Amen.
I wish you all a Merry Christmas and a happy 2025. I send special request to my mama, Balu Bangura, and my papa, Alfred Bangura. And same also the send request to my sister there and my family in number 16 Donda Street, Freetown. I wish you all a Merry Christmas once more.
I send this Christmas tell I do to first of all the head of the executive director, the head of radio, television, and all the committee at SLBC. I send this Christmas greeting to the members of Light of Kashe, especially Chairman Pa Ibrahim Sori Kamara, and the Sanda Cultural Theatre, all the members of Sanda Cultural Theatre. Same way, so how they forget the Imam, they will help you throughout the year, where you get Imam Mohamed Cherno Jallo of Masjid Istikar, Ilmu Zikr, na Hill Station. Then we get Mufti Mohamed Chestin Thomas Nafobe, Sheikh Khalil Kamara, then Sheikh Lamin Mansare of Tunkara Mosque. Then Mrs. Fidawi, former head teacher, Trinity. I wish everybody prosperous and happy New Year in advance. Mina Isa Mahmoud Muslim Concert.
I God thank you. Whatever you don't do for me throughout this year, for my family and my office, I want to say Papa God thank you, and I wish my family, me picking them all a Merry Christmas and a prosperous New Year. That God will give you all long life for let we see it another bright and prosperous 2025. Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year to everyone. Love you.
I want to say season greeting, Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to the whole country, especially all the patient for watching and also for listening at the radio. I want to say Happy Christmas and Happy New Year to my family, especially my wife and my people out in that village, McDonald by Waterloo. And I want to say happy blessed day. May God continue for keep we so we see 2025. And before the end, I want to say a special season greeting to all of us that I said we will get the time for make the like today with the go further to 2025. I want to say thank you to them all and thank you to the editing, especially my boss, Ona Bobby Kalamin. I want to say season greeting to everybody. Thank you very much.
It's the season to be merry, the season to be joyful, and it's the season to rejoice because it is the birth of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. This is how we say Merry Christmas and a bright and prosperous New Year, though in advance. I want to take this time in particular to wish my Director General, Madam Josephine Kamara, Merry Christmas and a bright and prosperous 2025 due in advance. Same goes to our Deputy, Mr. Mohamed Asmi Ba, Board, Management and staff of the SLBC. A Merry Christmas and a bright and prosperous New Year in advance. I also want to spend a special Christmas message to my family, friends, loved ones, and of course a special one to my dear Asnatu Kaloko, who resides at 4E Old Railway Line, Tenbe Town. A Merry Christmas to you, a Merry Christmas of course to my family members, friends, loved ones, and even viewers of the SLBC. We've served you to the best of our ability in 2024, and we do promise to do more than, of course, you can even imagine in 2025. I also want to send a very special Christmas wish to His Excellency the President, his lovely wife, Madam Fatima Biu, and of course the entire people of Sierra Leone. Merry Christmas, a bright and prosperous 2025 in advance. We love you. Peace out. God bless you.
And a happy new year. We won't go until we get.
For this opportunity to say thanks to God Almighty, who is spared me life to this point, from January up to this point, and very soon we can go into a new year. And for this opportunity for say thanks to God Almighty for keeping me thus far, and also again I want to thank you for the kind of institution where I belong, when at the SLBC. I want to say I belong to a family. I belong to a people we all see ourselves as family. I pray that we all will see 2025 inside good health and prosperity. To my family out there, I want to say you people are wonderful. You have been part of my success. If I did it today, so I want to appreciate you. Any outside in the world, outside the country, in the country, I want to say appreciate you all, and I pray that we will see 2025 inside Jesus' name. And to me, let mommy we don't die. You Sunday today, it will do well. I want to appreciate you every day because it's time for me for life to succeed, and I make you proud. And I want to say thanks to you for wisdom, spare you time for you see that you one great boy picking reach to this level there. And once more, I want to say happy new year and a prosperous 2025 to everybody in our SLBC and the nation as a whole. And also again, I want to say plenty thank you to the president. We the spearhead the whole nation within at the helm of affairs. We all know say you don't do your part, you do very well. And we pray that God will continue to protect you and guide you inside Jesus' name. Once more, thank you. Happy New Year and a prosperous 2025.
Wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. We won't go until we get.
Pledge my love and loyalty to this station, SLBC. I've worked for this station for so many years, and I wish everybody a Merry Christmas and a happy 2025. Happy New Year. I wish my family who are here and the one in Bo, my little daughter Tilly, I wish you a Merry Christmas and a happy 2025. I wish the SLBC a good and prosperous 2025. Let the station become a new and a vow of this Sierra Leone, of our blessed Sierra Leone. Thank you and God bless everybody.
Christmas and a Happy New Year. We wish you a Merry Christmas. We wish you
I want to wish each and everyone Merry Christmas and a prosperous 2025. To all members of staff in the Sierra Leone Broadcasting Corporation, I want to say Merry Christmas and a prosperous 2025 with we all. I want to wish Merry Christmas to all we staff them at the provincial part of Mama Salon. So una where they send una text message where we can read na the SLBC, and so una we can participate na different programs then. I want to wish una all a prosperous 2025 and a Merry Christmas where they can. I pray God will make we see 2025 with well body, with gladness, and God will favor we in anything where we do. 2025 will be a prosperous year. On behalf of the Campbell family, I want to wish each and every Sierra Leonean a prosperous 2025.
wish you a Merry Christmas. We wish you a Merry
Hello friends and family, me Natamba Bangura, the camera operator at the SLBC. Well, I want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year in advance.
On behalf of the Dumbia family and on behalf of the SLBC family as a whole, I want to wish all listeners, viewers, and the country as a whole a Merry Christmas and a prosperous 2025 in advance. And I pray say God will make we continue foresee and celebrate many more to come. Once more, on behalf of the SLBC family and the entire media landscape, we want to wish you all the best.
We wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
First of all, I want to wish you a Merry Christmas and a prosperous New Year. I want to wish my sister, Mary Kuruma and Anna Kuruma, and again I want to wish my brother them, Tamba, Solomon, Samuel, Mohamed Lamin, and again I want to wish the General Happy New Year's and Merry Christmas. May God make we see many Christmas to come.
So I want to tell Papa God thank you to see the wonderful day in your spirit, to see the end of this year. I want to say Merry Christmas to my family, goes to the Toby family and our family. I want to tell God thank you for my mom. I was praying a lot to reach the 98 years of her birthday. I want to tell thank you to my big sister who give me the encouragement to go far in school. That's right, our boss and tailors, Mr. Eric, and who camera operator at the SLBC. Wishing you all a Merry Christmas and prosperous year in advance. Thank to the President of the Republic of Sierra Leone, mostly to big brother, my educator Toby, to my mom, Mary, Toby, to all of brother, James, Racing Officer. Then I want to see a big Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to the Deputy Director of Prison, Mr. Lamy. Continue the good work. Thank you, Papa God. We wish you blessing and prosperous year in Jesus' name.
We wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
The Christmas will not come. Although nothing on it, I'll tell God thank you for life. And the message they go through to the Director General, the Board of Trustees, all the management and SLBC, and they pray that the new year how they can begin, may they do well for it. And then I'll send greetings from my parents there, now home, do the Chief John Kenema District, and they all thank you, like God, man, we all meet up to everybody a long life back.
I greet all my family, them upline of Itongo, and tell them Merry Christmas. Then the lawyer them, and they wish them Happy Christmas. Police, Happy Christmas. Then my family member of SLBC, the director, they all my family there, I tell them all thank you. Without not to SLBC, I don't for the entire. I tell them thank you because they make me happy for them with them. Me a family to them now. I tell them thank you. I tell police them thank you. I tell them all Merry Christmas and advance.
Joy to We get them every day. So if you wanna get your bonga fish, you better take a walk to the water side. So if you wanna get your bonga fish, you better take a walk to the water side.
Discover Sierra Leone, a hidden gem of West Africa, where the rhythms of life dance in harmony with the beauty of nature.
Feel the heartbeat of our culture in every beat of the drum, in every step of the dance.
Experience the tranquility of our shores, where each sunrise brings new stories and endless possibilities.
Immerse yourself in the vibrant tapestry of our daily life, where every color tells a tale and every face a friend.
Come, be enchanted by the sights and sounds of Sierra Leone.
A place where your adventure awaits.
And memories are made.
তারা যেটা যাচাই করে নেয়। আমার নাম মাহি, আমার যখন 11 বছর বয়স ছিল নিজেও জানি না। তারপরে আমি বলছি যে আমি এখন বিয়ে করবো না, আমি পড়তে চাই। আমার মারে বললো
ini basibisha kukwambia kuna mtu amekuja Daombi kwa anataka kuoa. Huyu baba mzuri tu mdogo, mimi nikafanyaje, nikamwambia pia alipishmika imermeza zake ndio midad bozam پدر مادر هیچی نمیگفتم و هیچ کسی چی نمیگفتم، بازم به میرا قانتیر میکردم.
In 2018, Voice of America posted videos on social media of girls and women describing their experiences as brides and young mothers. The videos sparked a global conversation, receiving tens of thousands of comments and arguments for and against child marriage. Spurred by the overwhelming response, VOA journalists and photographers spent a year chronicling child brides around the world, putting faces and voices to a practice the United Nations is trying to eliminate by 2030. They focused on the worth of a girl and her value to two families, the one she leaves behind and the one she joins. What they found was troubling. In much of the world, child marriage is common and acceptable, and the lives of girls aren't worth very much.
به مکتب میرفتم صنف 7 بودم، 10 روز بمونده بود که امتحانا سالم نخو بودم که برم صنف 8. من عروسی که بکردم دگه نگداشتم، هرچی که من گفتم میرم به مکتب میرم. امی خسول و خوشی ما همگی گفتن که اگه تو بری به مکتب ما.
At 13, Samaya was a dutiful daughter and sister in Afghanistan, helping her family make ends meet. Her father sold her to an abusive relative for $3,300.
این مرمی زدک دو میداد، باز همه به پدر مادر خود چی نمیگفتم، به هیچ کسی چی نمیگفتم، باز هم به مو رقم تیر میکردم. همین تا با موشت و لغت و هردم مرمی زدم و دو میدادم فاش میگفتم. مثلا اثری نمونه به جان شلاقی چیزا نمیزدن که اثری بمونه.
Samaya represents child brides around the world, poor, powerless, barely educated, whose resistance to marriage is either ignored or overruled. Like most, she had no choice in the decisions made by the grown-ups in her life. She was a business deal.
کارا مارکی میکنم موتور بخریدیم و نمقدارمو هم که میگفتم میرم مکتب و شومه و خوشومه و همه مرمی زدن که تو نمایی که بریم مکتب نمیدیشتن.
Unë quhem Orkita Driza, jam martuar në moshën 13 vjeç e 7 muaj. Njëra nga motrat e mia që ishte, domethënë ishte më lart pak më e madhe se te unë, vuante me një sëmundje të rëndë, domethënë nga veshkat, të dyja veshkat I kishte jashtë funksionit për jetën, dhe ishte në rrezik vërtet për jetën. Dhe mamaja ime vendosi që të bënte motrën operacion, që të më martonte mua me dikë tjetër dhe të bënte motrën operacion, sepse ky njeri që më mori mua për djalin e tij kishte, domethënë, kishte muhabet shumë me doktorët e Durrësit. Ky ishte një detyrim ndaj familjes, edhe unë e bëra për hir të si me motrë për të shpëtuar jetën. Më vajti vajza Bleona 11 vjeçe, edhe merrti dikush ma kërkoi po nga komuniteti, po ishte egyptian. u detyrova, sa është për mua si ta ketë shkujtash Zoti jetën, sa është për paktën vetë di që të flej rrugëve, për paktën vetëm fëmijën ta kem të strehuar, sepse nuk njihja ndonjë këtu që ta mund ta strehoja fëmijën. Po faktikisht jam ndier shumë e penduar, por më bëri jeta, fatkeqësia e jetës.
Child marriage is not confined to girls in poor, developing countries or members of a certain religion or tribal custom. Even girls in the wealthiest countries, like the United States, are child brides.
I have 4 boys. I have a 7-year-old, an 8-year-old, a 5-year-old, and a 4-year-old.
Ashley got married under the mistaken belief that her 18-year-old boyfriend would be jailed for statutory rape of a minor in the state of Missouri. Ashley said 2 of her cousins, one a year younger than her, married soon after she did.
Good. I got married when I was 15. I just found out I was pregnant not long before I got married. My aunt got on the bus and she told me to get off the bus, that I was going to go get married that day. All I can remember is hearing all the kids gasp and was like, she's too young. We went to the courthouse and got our marriage license. And then we went to a preacher's house here in Still, and he married us. I don't think either one of us realized how big of a commitment we were making then. No, that day I think I was happy, but I know there was definitely fear and doubt in my mind. I mean, I was happy that I was about to do what I thought was start a family, and I was excited more for the future than I think I was for the present.
عمر مې چې دی یو 10 سال کېږي چې عمر مې دی 6 میاشتې کېږي چې واده کړی مې دی. دلته راغلی مور مې ډېرې قرض وکړي په قرض کې خلک باوې وړي. ژړل مې ټول خلک ته مې مجبور ولو نو سمو کال قرضاریان داسې مو ټینګ کړی و. بیا مو ټول ول چې قرضاریان دې ټینګ کړی دي پیسې نه لري ورکړه ول پیسې نه لري ورکړه خپل لور ورکړه.
In much of the world where marriage is a transaction marked by cultural expectations and traditions, young brides like Samaya and Bobogai pay the biggest price for their innocence, independence and freedom.
واده مې چې وکړ ژړل مې اوس 2 میاشتې کېږي خپل د خپل د میړه کور دلته راغلی یم. داسې راباندې کار ډېر کوي کار مې هم نه دی لږ زده نه دی دغه دپاره اوس دلته خپل مور سره راغلی مور مې لږ کار راته ښیي. ژوند مې مخ ته هم دغسې تماس سبا ووتم ماپښین د عینونه 500 روپۍ 100 روپۍ 10 روپۍ کبان مې ټولول. دا چې واده مې وکړ په دغه ورځ مې واده ولا زه ولاړم کباړ ته ولاړم. کباړ مې ټولول کاغذان مې ټولول عینان مې ټولول خرڅ مې کوي نو ډوډۍ موډۍ راوړم دا کوچنی خوري چې خرڅ مې نه کوي دغسې وژنه تجه ناسته دی. ته ستا لنډې مرض لا لرم ساه مې چې ډېرې بندېږي دغه یخ چې کېږي داسې ساه مې بندېږي تمام ورځ په بستر یم تمام ورځ جګرخونې کوم او تمام ورځ داسې خدای زړه مې دغسې اور وایم واخیستی.
મારી નંડી ઉંમર શાદી થઈ ગઈ તો મને છોકરી મારા બાબે એ સોચા હોસી તો તો મને દિલા પાણી મને બાબે કે તો વડી થીસી તો પછી બિલાવણ ડોહે ને વડે છોકરા બિલાવણ સારા નંડિયાला रवाज हा ना नंडड़े उम्र पे शादी कर छोड़े दे नंडी उम्र पे कान तला पीछे मेरे बाबे मना देती है मैं और मन जैसे तो पीछे मां शादी कर छोड़े सा.
Over and over, girls are forced to leave classrooms where they thrived and into marriages where most of them never wanted to be.
शादी खां पहिरीं माना मां स्कूल वेंदी हुअमि त सुठो लॻंदो हो मां जब मां पढ़ां
वो शादी को मुझे शादी थी वही तो मां जाना पोइ बि मुंहिंजो शौक़ु आहे हो पर मां शादी के पीछे भी मैं माना स्कूल मैं शौक़ु आहे मेरे पढ़ण दा मां जो मैं पढ़ा सारे छोकिरा इवें करनि न दिला पाणी न चईंदा शादी कर छो शादी के पहिरियों माण्हू आज़ाद हो माना घर जो कमकार अपनी मर्ज़ी ते करंदी हुअमि बेचारा मां पियो वादन करंदी हुअमि न त ठहे बैठी हूंदी हुअमि वांदी बैठी हूंदी हुअमि शादी के पीछे वाला सॼी घर की जिम्मेवारी आ गई ना सॼे घर की जिम्मेवारी आ गई सॼे घर का कमकार माना बालों को संभालना पीछे भी मैंने घर वाले मैंने पीछे रोक छोड़ना घर की सॼी जिम्मेवारी आ गई अपनी दीदी शादी माना वॾी थी सी पीछे कर वैसा
Growing up in poverty, the girls value an education.
Iya sih, takutnya gitu yang ditakutkan. Dulunya sih sempat nangis gitu, mau udah saya tuh pengen sekolah aja dulu. Tapi kata maknya udah nggak ada biaya, dia nggak bisa lanjut gitu. Kata orang tua udah gini aja, udah nikah aja. Baru umur anak dibikin cepet aja, anak umur 2 tahun saya udah ditinggal. Ya mungkin karena enggak terurus mungkin. Ya kayak sayanya kan belum bisa ngurus suami sama anak mungkin kurang diurus gitu, makannya, tidurnya gitu. Kalau saya kan pengennya bermain terus sama teman-teman.
To kamar da kika sani dai ban fara al'ada a lokacin ba, amma kuma sai ina gidan mijin na fara. To kuma dai da na zo haihuwa dai kin san yanayin da yara karancin shekaru baka yi girman ma da zaka san menene matsalolin ciki ba, amma wurin haihuwa dai an sha wahala.
Khadija, a member of the Fulani tribe, comes from a family of clerics. At 13, she was 2 years younger than the age limit that girls in her family are married off.
Amma ba a yin sama da haka. To maganar kuma da kika yi min na cewa akai haɗi ne, to zan iya cewa haɗi ne tunda a lokacin ba zan iya tantancewa me ya so me ya kiyayya ba kuma ban san ma ya so yake ba.
Throughout the world, young girls realize almost immediately the harsh realities of an early marriage.
Ai vërtet ishte I verbër, po ishte alkoolist, nuk rinte në shtëpi. Isha 13 vjeç e 7 muaj, ishte 24 vjeç në atë kohë. Martesa zgjati 15 vite, mbasi unë bëra 4 fëmijë me këtë që kisha. Dhe pastaj durova, I thash, u detyrova që ike sepse nuk mund të rinja dot më.
আরে যখন স্কুলে যখন পড়তেছিলাম আজকে আমি প্রতিদিন পড়তে থাকতাম আজকে মানুষ এত লাঞ্ছনা এত কথা এত কিছু শোনা লাগতো না ভালোটা চাকরি বাকরি করতে পারতাম ভালোটা কাজ কাম করতে পারতাম কিন্তু অথচ এখন মূর্খ দেখা এখন পড়া তো দূরের কথা এখন আজ পর্যন্ত আমার স্বামী আমার লাথি মেরে ফেলাইতে হয়ে গেল গা আজ একটু পড়ালেখা থাকতো তো স্বামী যেতে পারতো না এরকম আমাকে ফেলাইতে আজকে যদি লেখাপড়া করতাম পাঁচটা জানতাম বুঝতাম শুনতাম তাহলে আজকে আমার এই দিনটা দেখা হইতো না একমাত্র বাবা আমার ভুলের কারণে আর বিয়েটা হয়ে যাওয়ার কারণে আজকে আমি এই রাস্তায় আজকে আমি এই পথে
خودنا کام بی سواتا ایران گفتم طور نمیگذاره مکتب اگه تو بری کارام که میکنه بعد از عروسی هم میشه ور معخود بدور مادر پیش میکرد پیار پیش میکرد مکتب خو همه می دوران طفولیت کنه من مکتب خوش دیدم که
In a village in Tanzania, faced with the prospect of being married off to a stranger, 14-year-old Mwana Hamisi took control of her own destiny. She said no.
Siku hiyo ikatokea shughuli, nikaenda pale katika shughuli za tuseme za shule za graduation, nikaenda tukafanya sherehe, nikasikia kama mtu na umri mdogo anataka kuolewa. Fika kituoni akataja zile namba za simu, nikachukua zile namba nikaziandika nikaondoka zangu nyumbani. Nimelia, mama akasemaje, nenda. Nikaondoka zangu. Niliondoka zangu hivyo fika siku ya pili ile, yule bibi akanipa ile simu ili niwasiliane na yule bwana. Aliponipa ile simu, mimi nikaichukua ile simu, nikaandika zile namba, nikaanza kuwasiliana na polisi. Nikawasiliana nao, akaniambia inabidi ulipate hilo jina la baba na hizo tarehe. Ilifika siku ya pili, nikamuuliza mama, mimi na tarehe ngapi? Akaniambia tarehe kuhusu ananioa nani? Akaniambia hivi vinavyokuhusu wewe hapo kaa. Akaja mwenyekiti wa mtaa. Ulipofika usiku akaja mwenyekiti wa mtaa, akasema wewe ndo Damwana? Nikamwambia ndio. Akaniambia aje, sisi tumepata taarifa kutoka kituoni kama wewe unataka kuolewa. Kweli wewe? Nikamwambia kweli. Kwa mwenyewe na mimi sitaki kuolewa. Basi mwenyekiti tena akatumwa aende kule eneo la tukio. Akaambia hii ndoa isitishe.
She now lives in a shelter with other vulnerable girls and dreams of a career in fashion. Despite a worldwide acceptance of child marriage, the young brides realize their own self-worth. Girls marry for a number of reasons. But what about old-fashioned love? As the saying goes, it's complicated. Estrella was in the 6th grade when she fell in love. She married her boyfriend over their parents' objections. In Mexico, roughly 1 in 4 girls is married or in a live-in relationship by age 18.
Me llamo Estrella Belén Estrada Rodríguez, tengo 13 años, iba de segundo grado de la secundaria. Sino que lo pensaba por mi escuela, pues, pero como lo quiero mucho, sí quería estar con él. Cambió pues porque estudiaba y llegando pues ya estaba todo listo. Ya ahorita pues tengo que atender a mi esposo. Me levanto temprano a darle pues su café para las 5:40, 6. Ya después empiezo a limpiar la casa, los trastes, lavo su ropa, todo, ¿no? Y ya le ayudo a mi suegra a hacer pues el desayuno para que aprenda yo a cocinar, pues, más que nada, porque como no muy sé, pues, ya mi suegra me enseña. Pero ya me estoy acostumbrada.
Okay, I live in Dyersburg, Tennessee. I work all the time, take care of my baby and the husband. That's about it.
At 16, Katie married a man twice her age. Her mother signed the marriage license.
I got pregnant underage, and that was kind of what had us go ahead and get married so I wouldn't send him to jail. A lot of people look down on him for it and stuff, you know, but like I told him, I don't care what anybody thinks. I love him, you know, it is what it is. I mean, we're like any other marriage couple. We've had our problems. I mean, we split up, I went and stayed with them for a little bit, but we just know we want to live with each other, we want to be with each other, you know what I mean? So we work through our problems. I couldn't live without him.
Sultan in Turkey can relate to that. Now nearing 60, hers was an arranged marriage. She has 2 sons and no regrets.
Güzel bir şeydi, bilmiyorum. Ben de çocuktum. Beraber büyüdük oğlumla. Ama eşimi hiç tanımamıştım, bilmiyordum. Zamanla biz birbirimizi tanıdık. Şimdi çok mutluyum, çok şükür. Yani iki tane aslan gibi oğlum var. Güzel bir yerdedirler. Eşimle beraber yaşıyorum.
مدتی که اونجا در خانه بودی 1 سال ادعا می‌کنی و در خانه بودی برخورد اینا با تو چطور؟
گکستا و خلیجی ببینم گناه نداره.
هیچی گناه نداره.
8 months after her first interview, Samaya is transformed. She is divorced and living at home, away from the beatings and violence of her in-laws. Her father was sentenced to 2 years in jail for forcing her into marriage. She's happy and healing and wants to learn to read the Quran.
اونا دارن زندگی خور میکنم، من زندگی عادی خور شروع کردم، خیاطی میکنم، من مادرم یک براری دارم، برار من فعلا به شرکت مایه بره کار میکنه، دیگه کسی نیاز ما که مثلا نوار خونه ما فقط مانه، اول خدا بعد از ما برار مینه کلا نمینه، پدرم کارم نمیکرد. بله فعلا بیتر شده، حالا که پیام نیم خب کل بیتر شده، به خاطر از اینکه پیام که به جنگ دعوا میکرد و چه میکرد، اون پولی که ما خیاطی کردی از ما میسون، به این واسه از اون لحاظ خیلی خوب. خونه دیگه ما خیاطی مانه که مثلا اپرانه که بیارم برای ما خیلی میارم، بیشتر خیاطی و پیش مانه.
Na nikaendelea kusoma ile shule tuseme. Ndoto zangu nataka niwe mwana design mzuri.
Ya alasan saya mengajukan ke MK, jangan sampai adanya pernikahan anak lagi. Udah cukup saya aja yang jadi korban, kalau dinikahin masih anak, masih kecil tuh, aduh nggak enak rasanya. Iya, memperjuangkan anak gitu, udah jangan sampai kayak saya gitu, harus diperjuangkan anak.
What about your microphone, Mama?
It just stays there.
Why?
It just does.
Nie minuty, ja to podzielu.
Unë e martova se mbeta në rrugë, ku mund ta çoja unë vajzën time. Pra ma tisha në një shtëpi me vajzën, kisha një shtëpi personale siç jam këtu për shkak. Me vajzën time, normalisht unë do ta arsimoja fëmijën. S'kishte nevojë vajza im për burr 11 vjeçë, 12 vjeçë, 13 vjeçë. Ta arsimohesh, të shkonte në një punë, të punonte për veten e saj në një kurs, për veten e saj, jo për mua, për veten. Unë do punoja vetë edhe për fëmijën që fëmia im të ishte dikush.
Girls like Samaya are the exception rather than the rule. Around the globe, they remain at risk. For every girl like Mwana Hamisi who escaped an unwanted marriage, millions more are trapped in abusive, unhappy unions. For every Katie and Sultan who found love, comfort and stability, millions more are like Khadija and Orkida who don't know what love is.
Unë I bëj një mesazh të gjithë këtyre nënave, vërtet ne vetë jena martuar në një moshë të vogël, por të paktën fëmijëve tanë të japin një arsimim të mirë dhe fëmia mund të martohet në një moshë e pakta 20 vjeç, e pakta.
তাই আমি সবার কাছে বলবো একটা কথাই কমু যে আমার মতো আমি চাই না যে কোনো মেয়ের বাবা মা কোনো মেয়েকে অল্প বয়সে বিয়ে দিয়ে কোনো মেয়ের পড়ালেখা নষ্ট করুক বা কোনো মেয়ের জীবনটা নষ্ট করুক।
I do regret, not finishing school, growing up way too fast. That's just stuff you shouldn't do when you're a kid, honestly. I see that all now. I didn't see it then, though, and you can't change it.
Ending marriage before 18 is one of the United Nations 17 Sustainable Development Goals. It asks that governments, civil society organizations, religious and community leaders and families work together to re-evaluate the worth of their goals. It's a community effort, it's a country effort, it's a global effort.
So if somebody would have had a similar story to mine and would have told me, I wish that would have happened for me. I wish I had somebody to tell me that I was making the wrong choice.
I am here because of my illness. I have tried herbal remedies that didn't work. That's why I'm here. I was forcefully married. I told my parents that I do not like the man, but they insisted that I must marry him against my will. Then I told myself that my parents must have hated me to give me out that way. Now see what has happened to me. He has driven me out of the house. If I can get healed, I will not go back to him. I want him to divorce me. I don't want to go back to him. When I went to my father with my grandpa, he told me I'm no longer his problem, that his worries now are how to take care of my siblings. I just want to get well and be normal again. That's all I want.
The battle to eradicate the practice of child marriage is being fought on a daily basis across West Africa and the world. Local and international agencies, religious bodies, civil societies and governments have embarked on various campaigns to enlighten and educate on the ills of this practice. Still, child marriage remains. And every day, girls are forced to end their childhood abruptly and made brides overnight.
Mariam, come here, come here. I say come here.
Is the act of sending a young girl into a mission that she is not prepared for, into a mission that she does not know about. Getting a young girl to live for the rest of her life, a life that she is not prepared for.
We are talking of somebody in primary school who has not even gotten the basic education that is required for survival. Now you already send that one out into marriage. So it disrupts the career progress of that child.
According to the Quran said, do not give a child marriage until the child is matured enough.
This is really a serious problem, that is contributing to the poverty level in many parts of West Africa.
Early marriage is giving the child in marriage before the age of majority and then without their consent. Giving the child without their consent when they have not reached the legal age. For me, girls who are victims of violence are the girls who psychologically are labelled by society and psychologically will no longer like marriage. My name is Dado Camara. I'm 16. I like to have fun. I like going out with my friends, partying. I like school too. I do not like being bored alone, staying alone at home. I came here in May 2013 with my 2 older brothers. We came here on holiday. At first, my father did not talk about forced marriage to me. He said nothing. He came on the 26th of November 2014. When he arrived, he said we were going to the village together because all the family were there. So I went to the village with my father. There, he began to talk to me about marriage. Many people had asked to marry me, and I did not accept. He offered to marry me to my cousin. I did not accept, and there he said that then it will be by force. Yes, I felt a little sad. I didn't want it. I didn't know what to do at first. I didn't know how I would get out, but as soon as I called my sister, everything was sorted out. We have to stop this. It is not right. The world has changed. These are the sort of things that happened before, but now there is no more forced marriage. The husband's situation, the rate of early marriage is high in some localities. It is not in all localities. For example, in the Kai region, with the Sonin case, there are many early marriages. So it depends on the region. And today, we know that with the rise of fundamentalism, girls are married early. As the doctor said, in general, it is so that the girl hasn't had sex or teenage pregnancy. Then, it is also out of respect for religion.
First reason, customs and traditions. Second, the importance of religion. And thirdly, it is a pleasure. It is an honor for a family to give his daughter in marriage before she has had sexual intercourse for the first time. When it is discovered after the wedding night, that the girl never had sex, she is still a virgin, the whole family is happy. The whole family is honored. They even give gifts to the girl. The husband is obliged to give gifts to the girl as a reward. And parents are very happy. They are very happy, and mothers, aunts come celebrate it.
We are in the process of educating parents about the consequences of early marriage. We work with doctors. You have just met our doctor. We work with doctors who raise awareness of childbirth with parents of children who have married early.
The worst case is this woman. This young girl who was married at 15 to her father's friend. Her first pregnancy was not followed or declared. She gave birth in a hamlet in the bush. She suffered a vesicovaginal and rectovaginal fistula. She had a tear between the vagina and bladder and the rectum and the vagina. So she had urinary and fecal losses. And although the child was big, he did not survive. Not only did she lose her child, but she had a double obstetric fistula. We hospitalized her, she was given medication, antibiotics, but unfortunately we lost her. This is the worst case that I can remember.
I say that to stop early marriage in Mali, we need a law. Because with our code of persons and the family, the child must be married at 16. Although the age of majority, it's 18 years. So I think we need a law to end early marriage.
Niger has the highest rates of child marriage in West Africa. 75% of girls in Niger are married before the age 18.
When these offences are committed, there must be prosecutions and consequently sanctions against the perpetrators of these infractions. I am an example. I still remember when I was in primary school. One day, my family introduced me to a girl about 8 years old, and I was made to understand that she would be my wife. Me? I was surprised. I said, "But why?" They said, "It is out of respect for our traditions." I said, "But tradition must change, and it has to be a good thing. So if you give a girl of 8 to be married, you prevent her from going to school, which means you are holding back her spiritual, moral, and physical development."
In Nigeria, northern Nigeria has one of the highest rates of child marriage.
Early marriage, in Nigeria and in many parts of West Africa is one of the most serious issues that is undermining the growth and the development of young, girls. In the sense that, in many places in Nigeria and in West Africa, young girls are taken out, from school for marriage when they are not actually even matured, enough to be given out for marriage.
You find out with statistics that 1 in 3 girls below the age of 18 are actually given out in forced early child marriage, and 1 in 9 are given out in marriage before they actually became 15 years of age. So the situation is quite alarming in the country.
The Child Rights Act, passed in 2003, set the minimum age of marriage for girls in Nigeria at 18. But the provision to execute this law remains undeveloped in many parts of the country.
The issues about early marriages in Nigeria has to do with issues of religion, it has to do with issues of tradition, it has to do with issues of poverty. It has to do with issues of illiteracy, so you can expand it as far as it goes.
Most parents believe that by giving out their girl child early for marriage, it's also a way of securing their virginity and the family honor.
There is such a divide in the country. Poorer people seem to be a lot. So when there is a situation like that, there is shortage of resources for family. So they are only left to the option. It's more like the child is the only valuable thing to be traded. So they end up trading the girl child. And we live in a patriarchal society. Poverty goes hand in hand with gender inequality that we have in Nigeria. The girl child is viewed as not so valuable. So they tend to say, "Oh, I can invest in a boy because he's bringing back to me. But when I invest in a woman, she's taking it to her husband's house and it's not going to pay me."
I poisoned his food so he can eat and die. I did it because he forcefully married me. I want him to divorce me, but he said no. He stopped my education, and I want to continue my education and be a medical doctor. My parents told me to be patient, that I would learn to love him with time. But all I want is to finish my education and be a doctor. Parents should stop marrying out their children forcefully, because they don't know what they would face in the marriage.
The 1948 Universal Declaration of Human Rights states that marriage should be entered only with the free and full consent of the intending spouses.
Whichever way you look at it, either from the cultural aspect of it, from the religious aspect of it, And from the economic aspect of it, I think parents have great responsibility to play in taking care of their children and not just pushing them out to go and get married at an early age.
We need to promote gender equality, because we discover this thing is mostly with the girls, giving out the girls out for marriage to make a living. So gender equality should be promoted or be encouraged. Corruption must be addressed. Poverty must be addressed.
When people are educated to know the ills of child marriage, they are better informed and able to take decisions like this is unhealthy for my child. And also when you look at the psychological effect, a child giving birth to a child, she's not prepared for it. She's not prepared for motherhood because she's a child. She's not emotionally and physically prepared for it. But when you actually go about educating people and creating awareness, they are better informed to make appropriate decisions to actually protect their children.
In Burkina Faso, the legal age of marriage is 17.
The reasons that make it difficult to eradicate child marriage in Burkina Faso, as everywhere else, are primarily related to our culture, because the mindset runs deep. Issues of culture, of tradition run deep into the roots of our societies, our villages.
And with that, as I said, different information on human rights, the phenomenon diminishes more and more.
The girls are unable to complete their education or go to school at all. Most of these girls who marry young are often the second or third wives of a partner who is substantially older.
The young girl who is given in marriage very early risks her life, simply because she may die because of this early marriage, because her body is not yet ready to receive a man, much less a child.
Newly married girls are expected to begin childbearing immediately and then tend to give birth within the first 20 months of marriage. Sad as this is, they become part of a revolving circle that keeps them forever in poverty.
There is a legal age for marriage between man and woman, but this is already prescribed in the family code. There is a law, but some do not obey the law or are ignorant. I say that the law is made to be respected. If there are people who will not respect the law, the government needs to enforce it and impose sanctions.
We need the government to pass a law, just as it did for excision. We need the government to support the fight against violence by adopting legislation, punishing infractions through imprisonment or fines, so that people understand.
In Sierra Leone, child marriage is also very common. In the rural areas, 61% of girls are affected by child and forced marriage. 2 out of 4 girls are married before the age of 18.
I live with my parents. I go to school in the morning and in the evening sell for my mum. I'm in a relationship and got pregnant. My mum threw me out of the house and my partner abandoned me, leaving me with the child.
Although there is a law that prohibits child marriage in the country, However, with parental consent, it is permitted.
The typical Sierra Leonean or African man believes that women are meant for the kitchen, they are meant to be raising children, and so they don't believe women, so they believe women should marry at an early age and start doing those stuff.
Many girls have no choice but to marry young in order to help their families financially. It is customary in Sierra Leone for a girl to be married at a tender age of 9 years old.
In Sierra Leone, the age of puberty is determined according to the physical output of the girl, say the breasts, the body, the features, you know. So when this girl has attained such puberty period, the parents could be tempted to give her to the man for marriage. Then under the religious factor, we have, for example, the Islamic religion, and the doctrine of Islam says a girl is matured when she starts seeing her menstrual period, you know. So they are tempted to give such children to marriage. It's also affecting the practice.
A lot of culture and communities, people have accepted it. People have accepted it. There is this poverty. Poverty is one kind of thing that is associated with early marriage.
From the time of the first pregnancy, there is suffering that she will endure for the rest of her life, no pleasure, rejected socially because she is disabled for life.
For the national community, on the fundamental rights granted to girls. During these occasions, we expose these rights, especially regarding marriage. We recall that in our country, there is a legal and legislative framework, the Civil Code, which protects the girl against early marriage.
What we do, what we are actually involved in, is in fighting to raise awareness on the ground in communities. That's what our organization does. We train paralegals to go and raise awareness about the rights of women, the rights of children, to promote the education of girls and to keep them in school.
Today, we are in a harmonization phase of the legal texts with our international commitments. We have almost completed revising our civil codes that harmonize the age of marriage. The proposals we have made in our civil code, revised in partnership with the Department of Justice, is that the minimum age of marriage for women is 18 years.
The general consensus is that to curb child marriage, there must be continuous effort to empower the girl child.
We in Workshop, we have been advocating that there should be at least, a minimum age limit, in which, young girls should be given to marriage. Workshop has been, engaging, different stakeholders, with view to curb and minimize this practice, in Nigeria and in many West African countries, through, policy dialogue, because we believe that this has to, be done in order to minimize the consequences of the early marriage, So we engage on, policy dialogue to look at, what our policy makers, what our legislators, what other, stakeholders, even the parents, and, even some, in most cases, some of the men, we do, meet with them to discuss, to see the best way.
There must be a commitment to changing social and cultural norms that are detrimental to the rights of children, especially the girl child. And also, adoption of legal reforms and policy actions that protect the girl child. With the activities of various local and international organizations, the campaign has brought some improvement, but the journey is still far from over. Until every girl child is completely free from the pressure and danger of being forced into child marriage, the campaign must not die.
Cultural traditions have placed a woman's and a girl's work table around the domestic household. Education opportunities for girls remain limited as many parents see no value in investing in their education. As a result, cases of child brides in Sierra Leone become prevalent. Statistics by UNICEF show that approximately 40% of girls in the country are married before their 18th birthday. In a small village of Dankawale located in Koinadugu district in the northern province of Sierra Leone, we find Kumba and Manimo. The two almost fell prey to early marriage.
I've been there in 13 years to 14. Man come up for me say he want married me. But definitely I don't know the importance of education. I've been decided to say I married to the man. Mama then agree now. We don't begin to set up the marriage now.
I've been there class 6. I sit MPS, I pass for go Form 1. Man come up for me, say I'm married.
Miles away in Lengekoro village, 15-year-old Musu Dabo also went through the same ordeal.
I feel bad for them going to give me married. I feel bad.
Elimination of child marriage is a priority under SDG 5 on gender equality, hence the need for effective country-specific interventions to accelerate the end of this practice. One of them being Miss Small Wife No More project by Coast Canada Sierra Leone Partnership. The pilot project was supported by the Fund for Innovation and Transformation, running from November 2020 to January 2022.
This project is about looking into the underlying causes of teenage pregnancy, which is very rampant in the country, and not only being rampant, but also people and authorities are just shy from talking about it. Though some of the repercussions or the challenges are well known, but it's just a taboo, something to talk about it. And COUS decided to talk about something that people keep very, very silent over the years, knowing very well that if we go into that type of project, it will bring a lot of knowledge to our people, awareness.
This innovation tested an approach that involved educating men seeking child brides about the negative consequences of child marriage for them, their families, and communities.
On this, a lot of approaches have been made by other NGOs before, but they did not work. One of them was to support the parents directly so that at least they would keep their children from early marriages. That didn't work. Some came up with ideas of engaging the girls themselves, supporting them, so that at least they will not be induced into going to early marriages. That also failed. So our own approach was to engage the community, the entire community, bringing in the very influential people in those communities to be the advocates against the child marriage. That is where it is. Because these are the very people who sit and negotiate these child marriages.
Before the implementation of the project, we did a baseline survey. Through the baseline survey, we find out that the community stakeholders and the men in those communities are the ones marrying those girls. So what we did during the implementation, we formed a structure called the intermediaries and also the men's group. These people, we are the main actor in this project. The men go out there, advocate for us to their fellow men, talk to them about the implication of child marriage, while the intermediaries, they aborted the marriages, they put stop to it, and they try to talk to the girls in the various community about the implication of child marriages.
Besides being trained as advocates against child marriage, they were also empowered to organize home visits and community events to spread awareness on the negative outcomes of this practice.
The intervention of the FIT project into the community by training the intermediaries, and the intermediaries also take the bold step to work for their people. Taking your girl child to early marriage will make them not to, you automatically kill their future, right? And there will be less development in the community, right? And we all know that when you educated one girl child, you have educated a nation.
So I can go to them house to house, I desensitize parents there, I tell them the benefits of education, the benefits of where land the girl picking, how they become. So at times you the picky, if you go school, you not go school that day, I go to a parent house to house, I ask what make you not go to school today? Then they tell me what's not them problems, so I can give me little advice.
In addition to that, families are also cautioned on the economic impacts of child marriages. They will marry off their daughters to receive dowry payments that they perceive will help reduce economic burdens, not knowing that it will bring more losses than good along the way.
There are actually costs, high costs related when a child goes into early marriage. Now, they are not physically matured for that, and it brings in a lot of complications. And more so when they become pregnant, most of them. If you go through the literature of this country, you will see that we have high maternal and morbidity rates in this country. And most of it can be related to early marriages, you see. And for the families themselves, when you lose a loved one, it's something almost unbearable, but you just have to accept it. So these are things they see, it disturbs them. And even these girls, when they are young, they are very attractive to these guys. They go to this marriage, after 1 year, 2 years, they see another one. They bring that one. Now their concentration lies on the new one and leaving this. And at times there are so much palavers, that the girl cannot bear it. She has to return home. And usually when they return home, initially she came as one person. When they return, maybe she returns with 2 or 3 kids. So more bellies to feed.
By the end of the project's testing period, Coast Canada recorded a significant impact. 172 child marriages were cancelled in the Koinadugu and Falaba districts in the northern province of Sierra Leone between January and September 2021. Overall, the innovation reduced child marriage by 95% in target regions, far surpassing their target of 50%.
Anadamele kara benefiti matibana wo fola afale kaka mo filasa we wasoka konde mbonku mantike kwana nadimise wabo akumale atimilia ati femfe kumale ben wasa alkumero wo fon sayire fola fa kara benefitela male makar ma wata ka diere fu si maduke en ko maka kon kaka ma ande ne bola nyamata ba Mr. Tembi mo cheme sawala kumala Mr. Dedu mo kon
ndu fere woti na wala won ba bi kelman na to bar kala an ke din krem wala alhamdulillah mbara lo kala to ne la belbel ke mbara ngo ki la toriye be si magbasine fin sambol no kona wakara wo dingi berke mbara lo tonum bi karan la.
On the other hand, there has also been an increase in the enrollment of female students in schools.
Number of girls at the enrollment in school presently has increased. I can tell you, from JSS 1 to SS3, JSS3, we have more number of girls in the JSS than the boys. Like for example, roughly, in my enrollment now, I have 216 girls in school, whilst the boys are only 110.
We also have a committee that look against those type of violation. Wherein we have the school safety committee, where we have the mentors, the guidance counselors, and the principal, the vice principal involved in this committee to look against some of these acts. And with that, before this time, because there was no sensitization about early marriage, parents were taking their children and give them to boys or man for early marriage. But with the intervention, because the school is very proud of taking drastic action against people that are really giving their children for early marriage. And for now, it has cut down.
There is now a promising future for the girls in Koinadugu district.
I promise. For say tomorrow we get for Kanaya, you know, get for Miss Kumba again, na Ministry of Education. I promise to be the first.
All right. No, right now I thank God because I dey go school. So I dey do things come on now, me and my parents so then I house now. So anybody else I want me for married or early married or teenage pregnancy, and they don't give full stop to them right now.
A very successful project, not only from the FIT side, from our side here, and even from the communities. Our plans are really to expand this project, not only in Koinadugu and Falaba district, but also like in Bombali, this are Tonkolili, and even Moyamba, where we have our biggest programs going on.
And as for Coast Canada Sierra Leone partnership, the battle is still on, as they hope to march forward to more districts across the country.
Retirement, a time for rest, but not for the late President Ahmad Tijan Kaba. In 1996, the former UN diplomat returned home ready for a new battle. Kaba chose politics. He led the Sierra Leone People's Party, the SLPP, in the first multi-party elections under the 1991 constitution. Sierra Leone was hopeful. Bad governance, corruption and war had torn the nation apart. Kaba's election was a beacon of hope, a new beginning. In March 1996, Kaba became the first Muslim president of Sierra Leone. His roots were diverse. His wife, a Christian, He was a unifying figure. Every Sierra Leonean saw a part of themselves in President Kaba. But trouble loomed. In 1997, a group of military dissidents overthrew Kaba's government in a coup d'etat. The coup was unpopular. The country was in chaos and grounded for 9 months.
This is indeed what every African country has leader has voiced out to me, that they say it's a disgrace, that there's always some problem by some of these hooligans in different parts of Africa, that Africans are embarrassed, they've had enough, and that they believe that this will be the end to any such coup in any other part of Africa.
Civil disobedience reigned. The slogan was "No school, no college." One voice that gave hope to a nation in peril was Radio Democracy. Ambassador Ali Bangura was one of the pioneering voices countering junta peddled propaganda.
I was listening to the radio, watching TV, and seeing propaganda being mounted by the rebels who teamed up with soldiers and overthrew the government we elected just about 13 months from before the date of that coup. And I was so furious because having realized the gains that have been made during the short period Tijan Kaba was in office, 13 months to be exact, the exchange rates had been brought down, inflation had reduced, and there was hope. And you cannot imagine having gotten the government headed by such a person giving us a new direction that will bring hope to our people. And you wake up one morning and they say the government has been overthrown.
Democracy was restored in 1998. Ali Bangura became Minister of Trade. He saw Kaba's vision up close.
And I worked very closely with him. And that is when I realized the sort of passion and love that he has to see that Sierra Leone moves in a trajectory that any progressive person will be proud of. Because I could remember several times in cabinets when cabinet papers would come and he would have reviewed them through his advisory council and had seen that this proposal being put forward to cabinet is one that has some ulterior motives. He would express his own views so passionately to the extent that you will see that it seems as if tears are flowing through his eyes. Will remain a tall, colossal figure in the history of our country because of what he did for this country, and those of us who worked closely with him, what we saw in him. We saw in Tijan Kaba a leader who has great love for the people and the country.
And as a nation, it was the right leader at that time.
Dr. Samabaniam was foreign minister. He was crucial in peace talks.
He was in school. It was difficult to understand the man. He was never emotional. And when it all happened, especially when I flew up, I was detained by the AFRC, by the way, arrested in my surgery and detained, and even my hearing aids removed from my ears and put on the ground, and the illiterate dogs who call themselves soldiers said, now this is the take talk to Tijan Kaba and Conakry. So for a long time, we didn't have this kind of conversation unless I went very close to you. Up to the time I got to Conakry, that's when I got a spare one and used it. So in his presidency, it was not what was good for me, it was what was good for the country. And especially it was the most difficult period.
President Kaba's determination was key to end the war. At the height of the war, Some of the things he grappled with were the displacement of Sierra Leoneans and the destruction of social amenities. Rebuilding not only the infrastructure but helping people return to their homes was a very difficult task. Kanja Sisay was the man who championed that project.
He now knew the kind of job I was doing. So he had come with the idea, with this vast knowledge in rehabilitation and post-war reconstruction in some other countries. He came now and now told me, my brother, Mfa, that's the way he used to call me. Mfa, I know the kind of work you're doing. I'm thinking of setting up a new ministry called Ministry of National Reconstruction, Resettlement and Rehabilitation. And I want you to serve in that ministry. Because I know that's the kind of job you're doing. That was a brand new ministry that he's the one who set up that ministry. And then he appointed me. My first appointment into government, into political office, was that one. So that is as deputy minister then. So then I started working, in an area that I knew what to do. So he was that kind of man, full of respect, So I served in that position for some time. And then, of course, there was the war. Then we went and we came back. I continued serving in that position. But then he converted the ministry to a commission. And this was because our partners, the donors at the time, said that as a ministry, we were just too bureaucratic for the kind of work we're doing. So because of that, we now converted. He then directed the then Attorney General, the late Mr. Solomon Berewa, to convert the ministry to a commission. Then it became known as NCRRR with a 3-year mandate. We did that, and then later on, because he had declared in 2002, when he said the war done, you understand? Then we now converted the place from a commission for national reconstruction, which was essentially an emergency kind of outfit. We now transformed it to a social fund called NACSA, National Commission for Social Action. And in all of this, he would call me and tell me what he wanted to achieve through the new commission, NACSA. And that is how we went all over this country rebuilding. Because, essentially, the war, the nature of the war in Sierra Leone was characterized by destruction of social and economic infrastructure. Schools, clinics, all over the country. The rebels would just go and burn down villages and towns and just destroy everything. So that was the task he gave me, to now do rehabilitation and then support the resettlement and reintegration of ex-combatants, of displaced persons all over the country. Now, we had many displaced camps all over the towns, even here in Freetown, but then taking them all back to their villages and their places. He knew what he wanted from me. He knew what he wanted from me, and so it was an issue of mutual respect for each other. He would call me and tell me, this is what I want you to do. This is what I want you to do. This is what I want you to do. And I would do it. And like I said, it was a relationship of mutual respect. And then I would, at this time, maybe give one of the reasons why he succeeded. He was a very liberal man, liberal-minded. And because of his experience working with the UN, he knew what to do. Some of us younger at the time, had very radical way of trying to do things, especially the impatience we had with the rebels. Just thought that military might should be exhibited, should be shown, so that he would tell us and say, call us and say, look, even if you have only one rebel with one AK-47 in a country, he goes and stands in a very remote village and he fires that, already he brings chaos into the country. So I have never seen in my life where war has been ended through fighting. So you have to be patient with me. We have to make sure that we finish this war through negotiation.
Dr. Julius Sandy believes that the country couldn't have had a better leader at that material time, whose vision and commitment were to transform his country and change the lives of his people through the recalibration of the state machinery.
Those were very crucial moments. That was the moment when we needed Kaba most. Yes, and that was a godsend for us. He was calculated, he was genuine, he just liked the country and he wanted to make sure that we had peace at all costs. But that was just part of his priority. But the main priority was to ensure that we have a stable, productive, and strong Sierra Leone in all spheres of engagement, in the economy, the civil service, the security sector, and all the sectors. That was it. I mean, imagine we were just emerging from war, kind of, although the war was still hanging over us. And then here was a president who had this experience in ensuring that we have a stable regime. You can imagine the drawbacks. One step forward, two steps backwards. Not because of his leadership, but because of the insurgency at that time. So he was just a godsend leader at that time.
From the day I was elected, even before I was elected, it was really on my campaign program that I was going to bring about peace to Sierra Leone.
Kaba believed in unity. He built a broad-based government and engaged young people.
It's extremely memorable, and coming back from the UK as a war child myself, President Kaba was then our president, and he was very receptive to young people, especially hardworking young people. So we had a very good friendship. Myself, the likes of Cherno Cheriko Kornaibul, the late Mosiri Fadika, Mohammed Gento. So we were even called the Pakaba Boys. We will go to the late president, and his key message to us was peace and unity amongst ourselves. You know, those days we didn't have all this green and red. I mean, the amount of cohesion amongst us, regardless of your background, whether you are Minde or Timni or Fula. And Pakaba would always say to us, war is not good. And the only way we could mitigate the occurrence of that is how we should be able to accommodate each other. So his message to us had always been peace, peace, nothing less but peace.
Marcella Sambasise was a young activist working for Campaign for Good Governance. As a woman and a youth those days, she had a space on the table.
The civil society space was an arena for free speech. You see, I came in contact with the late President Amatijan Kaba, may his soul rest in perfect peace, when I started at Campaign for Good Governance, but more importantly, as a student leader at Fawcett College, because at that time, we interfaced, you know, with making sure the civil conflict came to an end, and equally so ushered in democracy. Whilst at Campaign for Good Governance, then we were very, very youthful, just coming from college. I could remember the late president is really a transformational leader. He fondly referred to us as them picking them. During the post-conflict reconstruction era, there were so many projects, reconstruction, rehabilitation processes going on, and he was always concerned about the youth perspective.
President Kaba bridged divides. Opposition figures respected him. Some even became his friends.
But I will confirm that I had a very good relationship with him. I will summarize the key areas. One that has to do with his love for peace, national unity, cohesion, and love for Sierra Leone. He was a patriot. He loved seeing Sierra Leoneans together, irrespective of their tribe, their region, their religion, even their status in society, whether you are educated or not, whether you're rich or poor. I'm sure that is why he kept his friendship. Even though he became president, his friends were those that were his friends. Long when he was going to school, the Fadluddins and others, he did not change his friends in the past. He had people he worked with across the political spectrum. He had friends in the APC, friends in the SLPP, and even after the elections, he had friends in the PDP. There were other political parties then, you remember the late Temu Bangwa and others. Again, I remember when I was chair of AWOL in 2010 or thereabouts, or 11, we invited him to the AWOL Awards night at Family Kingdom. And he was to appear on stage with former President Nkrumah. When we met Tijan Kaba, late of blessed memory, he was happy to meet with us and he was excited to attend the program. We were going to award him for his role he played in not just bringing, but keeping the peace to Sierra Leone. He was there, he sat down as long hours as it could be. With his age, you just imagine, but he was happy being with us. He celebrated with us, he received this prize with humility and left. These things continued even when he left the presidency. I remember meeting with him one or two occasions at funerals. He'll go as this simple man, smiling and interacting, no pushing and shoving, no force. So he's somebody I'm sure we wish as Sierra Leoneans he will still have been around. I learned a lot from him, like late President Kaba. I believe in the things that puts us together. So irrespective of the political divide, like I learned from him, I myself don't practice the political divide. I remember in 2007, whilst we were campaigning, on two occasions, we met with him, once along Wilberforce and the other along Old Railway Line, Tengbe Town. He was driving, himself and one individual in front. I don't know whether the person was a PA or security, but this was how simple he was. He was driving, he stopped and waved to our crowd. And while smiling, all of us were excited and happy. Now Pakaba, the president, I know waved to Wison. We saw in him a person who was receptive to all and sundry, irrespective of the political divide, because he believed in one Sierra Leone. And as I said, on both occasions, that was what transpired. And I will tell you, he removed mystery, the mystery surrounding the presidency. He removed the mystery surrounding power.
I met him when I was a young boy in Makeni. He thought that he could use his office to mentor me. If I will quote him when he addressed the audience during an award ceremony, when he was awarded the Peace Prize, he said, I came to the office of president first and foremost to end the war. So some of you may blame me that I did not build too many roads, but I did not come to build the roads yet. I came to bring peace to this country and to unite this country. And that was what he did. Really, the road to peace was not easy. It led to a military coup, it led to his overthrow, but in the end, he came back and put in place the mechanisms that would bring peace to Sierra Leone. That's what he did. And this is why most of us respected him. And also, he did not politicize the administration of the state. He did not politicize the presidency. To him, every Sierra Leonean was a Sierra Leonean. And he looked, whenever he wanted to consult people, even if you were APC, if he knew that you had knowledge about certain things, he would call you and discuss issues with you. I remember when he was going to the United Nations, he shared his speech with me. So well, look, Ambassador, one mistake, Odede. I read the speech. And he said, well, go and dress, let's board the plane. So we flew to Brussels. From Brussels, we went to New York. This was how he operated. I was APC at the time. But he did not care. He was SLPP, but he did not care. It was the state. So to us, he was an acceptable president. He was a president for everybody. And this is why some of us are very, very happy that the public continues to respect him.
The late man is always remembered for the establishment of many of the country's post-war institutions.
Well, as a leader, for me, I learned from him. He was strategic, he was a visionary. Like for me particularly, he said, I want to establish a scheme that will take care of the old and those people whose welfare has been affected as a result of the war. So I want a social security scheme for them, right? So that was how me and him came to work closer together. I tried to find out from him what exactly was his vision. And his vision was to make sure that a scheme was established that would take care of those whose hands and limbs have been chopped off during the war, and the rest so that they will have means of livelihood. Then that was the time I said, well, before we can do this, it is but important that we establish a scheme that is contributory, where me and you will contribute so that at the end of the day, you will not fall vulnerable like those that are here now. So later, I said that's a social safety net thing. So one thing that I can say about him, he listened. And we discussed about it, and he was able to readjust his vision. So today we have the social security scheme. So he has been the man behind the establishment of the National Social Security Scheme, and I will always pride myself as one who has worked with him on that particular front.
At home, he was a loving father. After Patricia, Aissata Jabi Kaba supported him. She is the surviving wife of the former late president.
The late man was a family. Father, husband, he was a brother, he was a grandfather. So he was a very compassionate man. He loved his family. I was trying to go very relationship. Those to chat, not only me and the wife, even the younger ones at home, kids. He was very fond of kids. Because he would always say kids are very genuine, they will love you unconditionally with no strings attached. So he always has that love for kids. So he was very fond of him. Because of his background, Pakaba initially was an economist, a diplomat, a seasoned civil servant, and a lawyer. So because of that background, he was able to negotiate well, and he listens well, and he also consults people. Pakaba believes when there are issues, when there are problems, you bring people from different facets of the society, you discuss with them. So after tapping into all those resources, then he will now sit down and negotiate very well. And that is why it was very easy for him to negotiate with the rebels. And he also believes in delegating responsibilities also. So you now begin to see, even when the negotiations were going on, he will send his vice president, the late Solomon Berewa, to go and represent him after they have had several meetings and with also other people. So I think because he likes consulting other people, he likes getting ideas from other people, so he was always on top of situations. He never believed that he has monopoly over knowledge.
Protecting a president can be very challenging, especially in times of war. William Fayaselu served the late president as Chief Protection Officer, a duty he discharged for 11 years, and many of those years were difficult moments.
I was there throughout his entire tenure as president for 11 years. For 7 of those years, I was the Chief Protection Officer. I remember once we went to Boo in one of our numerous visits, and we had a whole lot of Kamajos lined up out there in front of hotels and meetings. I tried to restrain him not to go there to shake us. He said, no, those are my people. Those are the ones who are going to end the war, and we are going to end the war together. So he said, just follow me downstairs. We went downstairs. He shook their hands. For a very long time, he was shaking hands with people. Once, when Daru was actually under siege by rebels, that was when the Pakistanis were there. And then we had the Manchester-born Inspector General Kit Bidu. He actually wanted to stop him from going there. He wanted to go there to be part of the reconciliation process. He said to him, no, Kit, if you are not going, say I'm going. Say, Selu, let's go. So that's how he was. Those are the things I actually saw in him. I said, when somebody possesses those qualities, he's a successful person.
I was very close to the president because the relationship started during the elections. I had served as secretary to his campaign, his first campaign, and the campaign went very well, and of course the results were very, very positive. So from that time onwards, we became very close, and that translated into government. And he asked me not to, ask him for any ministry because he wanted me to serve in his office. So of course, I was like a novice in government. I had worked in university. I had come from the Department of Mathematics. I was head of mathematics department, and I had no idea how government was running. But I came and met this man who was, a seasoned diplomat, an accomplished diplomat, who had worked for many years in the public service, and he knew exactly how government functioned. So the first few years were really years of training. And during that period of training, I became like his blue-eyed boy. I was always with him because I was learning.
Pakaba, apart from bringing all manner of Sierra Leoneans into his cabinet, into his administration, he also tried to make them feel good, even when he had to let them leave for one reason or the other.
I'm my husband, apart from being my grandpa. So I was always that little child that looked forward to chocolates from his state trips. So every time he came back from a state trip, he would send me a box of chocolate that was popular in that country and a note card saying what country he had been to. Every birthday, he would invite us to the lodge and I would share cake with him, whether it was me or my brother. He would share cutting of the cake with him. And we became very close actually after his retirement when he moved to his Juba residence, where he would introduce me to people as a men picking, somebody who left to out for men.
So what can I say about Pakaba that hasn't been said already? Not much. All the wonderful things you've been hearing about the old man is simply the truth and more. Besides the fact that Pakaba was our beloved president, he was like a father figure to me. Pakaba was a patriot, a man of deep faith, indeed a man of peace, and yes, a Democrat. If he wasn't, then 2007 would have been a different story, and maybe we would have gone back to the dark old days. One thing I respected about the old man is the fact that he never once tried to get me to stifle the creative output of my artist. He would say, "Una left them make them sing. What's the no gonna bush?" That was Pakaba for you. I have always had this firm belief that every individual have a role to play in the advancement of man, no matter how small that role. Each and every one of us have a purpose in life, and that is to fulfill the will of God. Not too many people can boast of achieving that, but Pakaba, I believe, fulfilled the purpose for which he was put on earth, and that purpose was to bring about peace in our beloved Mama Salome.
And the late Amatijan Kaba saw me and asked me, "Hey young girl, what's your name?" I said, "I am Dr. Fatmata Hassan. Where are you from?" I said, "From North Tonkolili district." And he says, "The way you care about your people, the way you talk and ask questions, you are one of those ladies we need home. We want you home. I want you home." He not only said we, he said, "I want you home." The late President Alhaji Ahmad Tijan Kaba I hate to call him late, because to me, I wish he was still alive. He was such an inclusive person. All he asked for was peace and cohesion of the whole of Sierra Leone.
Never again shall we resort to violence to settle matters of political importance. This is the product of war. So I hope we shall all learn from this and try to embrace peace wherever we are.
A decade since his passing, Kaba's legacy inspires. He is remembered as a unifier, a leader, and a beacon of hope. Ahmed Tijan Kaba, the unifying leader.
May you so rest in peace and inside you there. Usa you there, Papa Usa you there. May you so rest in peace and inside you there. Cause we dey miss you. Papa, we dey miss you.
It is the night of our dear Savior's birth. Long lay the world in sin and error pining, till he appears and the soul felt its worth.
Hello and welcome to this special program for Ministries, Departments and Agency Review for the year 2024.
Well, the program will look into activities of MDAs in 2024 and plans for 2025.
I am Dennis Fraser.
And I am Esther Sako. Well, we'll start the review with a message from the Inspector General of Police, who gave some warnings about security.
Around the water side, love the fish. It is the night of our dear Savior's birth. Long lay the world in sin and error pining, till he appears and the soul felt its worth.
Hello and welcome to this special program from Ministries, Department and Agency Review for the year 2024.
Well, the program will look into activities of MDAs in 2024 and plans for 2025.
I am Dennis Fraser.
And I am Esther Sako. Well, we'll start the review with a message from the Inspector General of Police, who gave some warnings about security during the festive season.
On behalf of the entire Sierra Leone Police, and for which His Excellency the President, retired Brigadier Dr. Julius Maada Bio, government and people of Sierra Leone, a very happy Christmas and a prosperous 2025. We don't go through 2024. We thank God for us today that we are able to achieve a very peaceful atmosphere where they allow all man for do together for enjoy self in this particular period. But we also want to use this moment for remind people and say limit your day to your enjoyment. Enough for drink, you drive. Enough for drive on licensed vehicle in the street. If you make sure say you keep your behavior within the limits of what the law they allow. Because anybody, despite the fact that our Christmas season, if you find yourself on the other side of the law will bet you strong one. Once more, I wish everybody Merry Christmas and a prosperous 2025. Thank you.
Of course, that was the Inspector General of Police, William Fasero. Yeah. 2024 was a successful year for the First Lady, Madam Fatima Bio, in a drive to protect women and girls with the passing into law of the Prohibition of Early Marriage Act 2014 and the launch of the Hands of Our Girls Foundation by President Julius Maada Bio. The First Lady Fatima Bio spoke about her work in the year under review.
First of all, waiting this one go do, it will give people them confidence for not say yes, now they will finish their education. Because if Pekin they go to school, it's fearful say me parents them tomorrow they will just grab no more. Unilaterally just make a decision and give it to man. And I'm not going to do nothing about it. Just like waiting happen to someone like me. You know, now they know say that's not possible anymore. Because there is a law where they say you can't do that. May not we get that protection, but they have that protection now. And because of the success story of the Hands of Our Girls, we begin and now don't become bolder. You cannot, go just go tell any girl begin in this country now, say, go do this, they not check and know whether that's the way they force them for go do, whether it's good for them or not. So this marriage bill, that now one thing. Two, I want let the parents then see this as protection for their children. I don't remind people that most of the people that were there now we mortuary then today will die. Now there's small picking them where they go in a hospital for who born, they're not able for born them picking them because their body not be ready for born picking. No comrano day where you want for born you picking because of one small dowry where they give you. You go give you picking for let them go kill her for you. So this now other thing where I want Lady Mommy them and then pardon me. The president, Parliament passed on June 20, then the president signed on July 2nd. But there was a date on the bill. It came into effect December 14. And the reason why we put up for coming into effect December 14, so it actually aligned with the Hands of Our Girls anniversary. So it don't come into effect now December 14. Now my job is to go around the country just like how I do for the Hands of Our Girls campaign and make sure say everybody know this thing. But the thing, to be honest with you, because the Hands of Our Girls campaign, we don't campaign for the last 6 years all over this country, the banning of early marriage was part of that campaign. So that just not gonna go refresh people's memory. Now that you would go do. For now, an officer, any pikin don't come forward yet. We don't come complain, say they don't try for foster for marriage. You know, nobody don't come forward yet. But if any pikin come forward, we no go take them lightly, because we'll have to deal with it. We have to deal with the situation, just like how we may put premium on rape. That's how they put premium on early marriage, because early marriage it's just a cunning way for pedophile and for legalized rape. That is what we believe anyway.
That was the First Lady Fatima Mada-Bio giving her achievement in the year 2024. Now from there, for the Ministry of Information and Civic Education, which is our line ministry, the Minister Chanoba undertook so many activities during the year under review. Several town hall meetings were held, and to crown it all, the ministry organized the first ever civic festival in Sierra Leone. Let's join Minister of Information and Civic Education, Chanoba.
Fambulen 2024 now be a year of delivery. It don't be a year of delivery for this ministry. We are one of the newest ministry there, where His Excellency President Julius Mada-Bio creates. One, follow continue to provide public information to the people of this country, but also two, follow advanced civic education. It really cultivates that sense, say we elect this country and do the thing then for move this country go before. I'm glad for say as 2024 they come to an end, we will look back. The Ministry of Information and Civic Education don't make some remarkable gains there. Internally, we don't develop this ministry in capacity. We're in the process of hiring about 50 staff them for set up all the various directorates that the ministry forgets. But the most important job we get now for make sure say you the citizen get access to accurate, timely, factual information for meet you say you do it at your point. Information you know begin ask, this na fake, we think government think, we think government say. I think over 2024 we don't always be proactive. We don't bring you kind of information in an unprecedented manner. We don't bring that information, we don't simplify, we don't do inside Creole, we don't make sure say we cut video, audio, we don't reach community radio stations, we don't conduct the highest number of town halls in the history of this country. We any ministry don't do ever. We don't engage citizens there across every media platform. We don't open new phone line there free. With any citizen we want to get information, we want to ask question of government, we'll use that phone line there for let it send 818 and send you text. And with commitment, we will answer any and all questions because you the citizen that you will work for. Inside 2024, we do big presidential town hall where His Excellency himself sit down for about 3 hours and answer citizens and questions unfiltered. As the year comes to an end, we do the first of its kind Salon Civic Festival. We bring every single government department and agency, Naya, U building, Usai, all the government offices there, and we bring thousands of students there and young people from all over the country for can learn and see for themselves what the government don't do and all the hard work with His Excellency in government don't put in for deliver the big five for the people of this country. I'm glad for making us say we just look at the numbers of streaming alone for the events they will do over that 2 days day for the Civic Festival. We get over 1.2 million people there. We view alone, and then they talk about all the other multiple levels of engagement they will do. So this don't be big year for the ministry. On policy, we don't launch the first national civic strategy for the country. We don't go beyond that. We don't develop and finalize media policy. We don't do the film policy. We don't do records and archives policy. We carry data protection. So this year, as people like can say, we work. We do the buy work. We do the people like work. And we promise to say next year we do even more than we don't do, because with all the staff they will get all the additional policy we focus on, and with commitment for make sure say we bring you more accurate and timely information through various platforms. We don't even launch with new one government communication strategy. So not just with your ministry, but all ministry now we will centralize and coordinate how the ministry then they provide information for the people of Salone. So I want to take this opportunity now for wish His Excellency, the first gentleman of the Republic of Sierra Leone, the fountain of honor, the papa of this country, President Dr. Julius Mada-Bio, any wealth, my own big sister, my own mama of the country, Madam Fatima Maada Bio, is the Honorable Vice President, Dr. Mohamed Julde Jallo, the Chief Minister, Dr. Mwenina David Senge, and all my colleagues there, the Cabinet, the Speaker of Parliament, all the parliamentarians and the people of this country. Merry Christmas and a prosperous 2025. Inshallah, we will continue to deliver.
And our infrastructure development is the center of the government's B5 game changer. The road sector in 2024 faced its own share of the climate change and financial challenges. The Feed Salon program can only succeed when the road network is fixed and farming communities can be linked to major markets. Engineer Alfred Jalil Momodu is the Director General of the Sierra Roads Authority. He spoke about some of the major projects in 2024 and plans for 2025.
2024 has been a very good year for us. We've made a lot of achievements, and we've met some of our targets. We've made plans for even the following year, and of course next 2 or 3 years coming after, because as you are aware, our projects, our roads normally, they roll onto other years, maybe 1, 2, 3 years. So I mean, it's been a great period for us. So we have a number of road projects, some of which, like I stated earlier on, had started a year or 2 before, and we have different categories of road projects. For example, we have those being funded by development partners, either in the form of grants or in the form of loans, and of course those funded by the government of Sierra Leone. We have different categories of roads that we are working on. We are working on trunk roads, primary roads, secondary roads, and as well as urban roads, which are mainly found in townships. So all of the active projects that we have been ongoing, and then from time to time during this period, progress have been made on them. Let me draw your attention, for example, to the urban roads in Freetown. We have an active project with Sierra, for example, in the east of Freetown, where they've done very well on the old road, which links Furniture Junction to Grafton, and of course from Mabore area. That's part of the contract that they are doing. And I mean, if you go to that area, you realize that we've completed that part of the work. The lottery as well, where Sikon, a local company, is working in the western part of Freetown. You also see a lot of progress has been made on the AJ-Momo, not AJ-Momo, the Sherry Drive areas, for example, the Guana Avenues, the Sugar Loaf, and so forth and so on. So we've made a lot of progress in that regard. Also, critically, it's in the provincial headquarter towns of Kenema and Bo. We have 2 respective contractors working in those areas. We Build working in Bo, and Pavifort, another local contractor, working in Kenema. And several kilometers have also been achieved in terms of pavement in the townships. So I mean, those are part of the progress that we've made in terms of our urban roads. On the trunk roads, for example, we are currently working from Tikonko, Bitima onto Machu. The idea is we wish to connect all district headquarter towns with paved roads, and in as much as Machu is not like the headquarter town of Bond, but it is the biggest town on the mainland. So we are connecting that part, and then from Machu, of course, in other areas, people can access the island through boats and so on and so on. So we are working on that. That was through the help of Badia. Badia is funding that project. We are also currently working on the Kailaun to Boedu road. It's active. There's an active contractor working there. A lot of progress have been made in terms of artworks. In fact, the actual laying of the wearing course, the quota, which people normally call, would take effect in the next 1 week or so. So we've also made a lot of progress on that. But then over and above all of that, we have, like I said, we have worked assiduously with our development partners to ensure that we prepare projects for the coming years. So one strategic one I would like to draw attention to has to do with the Cambia, Tompari, Kamakwe Road in the far north. We are able to talk with the Islamic Development Bank, and now we are having funding for that. In fact, we've just gotten approval for advanced procurement. So by next year, there will be active work going on there, and then the people in the north along that road corridor, we start to see that respite is coming. we've also been able to engage Badia for the Bawia Benducha road. So you see, our target basically, like I said, is to go as close as possible to every district headquarter town, and we are still targeting Bont, in as much as Bont is an island, but we don't want it to be far removed, and one of the major links of connectivity is roads. So we are taking the road from Bawia Junction to Benducha, and Benducha is so strategically located in the sense that from Benducha you may only need 15 minutes or so to move onto the island. So we've also engaged Badia on that, and we are seeing very positive lights. So in terms of our development project, those are some of the things that are going on. We are, of course, still making efforts on the Bandajuma to Pujong Road. We have pretty less than 5 kilometers to ensure that Pujong has received tarmac road. There's another major structure very close to Pujong, the Makibi Bridge. We are also working on that. And when I talk of bridges, we've collaborated with SCADEP. Originally we had about 13 hand-pulled ferry crossings all around the country. So as we speak, through our collaboration with SCADEP, where we are providing all the technical support that is required, 4 of these bridges are at an advanced stage of construction. But that's not the only thing. Working with SCADEP, which is now transforming, not SCADEP, the IROM, which is now transforming to CAMI, we were able to collaborate with the Ministry of Transport, and we've gotten to the point where the World Bank has provided a grant of about 74 million. So we are targeting, amongst other things, another set of 4 bridges. These are major bridges I'm telling you about, over ferry crossings. So in the next 2 years, we should have had at least 8 of those hand-pulled ferry crossing points eliminated, or rather transformed to composite bridges. So in terms of bridges, those are some of the efforts we've made. That's on the part of development. We also have responsibility to ensure that our roads are maintained. So in terms of maintenance, we are doing recurrent maintenance, routine maintenance, and periodic maintenance on our roads. For example, we will ensure that our roads are brushed. We are working on that. Our highways are brushed. We are ensuring that potholes are mended. Where we have issues with culverts, either it's for them to be cleaned or for them to be replaced. We've been doing all of these over the period, and that's why you notice that there is a lot of connectivity nationwide.
That was Engineer Alfred Jalil Mamadou, the Director General of Sierra Leone Roads Authority. Sierra Leone's Minister of Technical and Higher Education, Dr. Aja Ramatullah Wui, has emphasized a commitment to increasing access to quality technical and higher education in 2025. The ministry will be focusing on technology, international collaboration, scholarship opportunities, and strategic partnership to drive progress.
The Ministry of Technical and Higher Education, which I always say, we ministry now we protect the investment where the government, under the leadership of His Excellency President Julius Maada Bio, don't make basic and senior secondary education. We nobody free quality school education, we don't remove the financial barrier. So MIO Ministry, Technical and Higher Education, we deal with vocational training, and universities now they build upon that foundation there, we then don't make basic and senior secondary, and protect that investment with the government don't make and partners them. We know say governments they spend 22% of the national budget to the education sector. We they protect that investments there and ensure say we equip the young people them with the skills the way they need for they able to contribute positively to societal development. And one thing we don't do within the ministry, we will not begin from scratch. We build upon the gains that we already meet. We already meet within the ministry. Certain things that have been done already in place. We just build upon that. And we strategic plan with a guide which they do. And I want for frame with success system around that. The first one about legal and regulatory framework. We look after higher educational institutions. We will forget documents, something in black and white where they guide how we do things in the interest of transparency, and then documents there so not so we don't want to study and develop them. they work with we stakeholders, the leadership and members of the higher educational institutions, and so all man know what's inside this document. All man know what's in our role and responsibility. All man know what's in we expect from them. For now we ensure say we fulfill we mandate as I explained earlier. So legal and regulatory framework, we get Tertiary Education Commission, TC, then we get NCTVA. TC they deal with higher education. Then our regulatory agency them. NCTVA they deal with vocational training. Then they ensure say everything will happen within them two space then they do them according to how it for be, and there's no one university or vocational training institution will do one thing then the other and do that thing and for do things in the same way. But we need the act, the legal and regulatory tool will help with for those two. So when I assume office, the process of revising the acts and they've been already done, they take place. So we just ensure say now we don't finalize the revision, we don't care and go now to Parliament, or they wait for the next steps and for them be documents, and now we all man will say yes, we go begin implement them. We also get, as you know, within the ministry, we therefore provide strategic direction to the higher educational institutions in the form of policies. Policies should be informed by evidence, waiting applicable to we own context, not to waiting the happen in other parts of the world, waiting applicable to we own context. So we get another policy we would work on. We have the dual apprenticeship policy. Then they in specifically now for support TVET training, vocational training, and it a document where they allow we follow work with private and public industry players then, but more so follow engage more with the private sector. As a government, His Excellency don't commit for provide 500,000 jobs for young people over a 5-year period. And vocational training in other parts of the world now you do use for develop the middle manpower. So we want for Medande also be the same as Salon. So we want for really change the perception, the quality and the relevance of vocational training as Salon. For now we ensure say we position young people and forget the right technical skills the way they need for them become job creators. So as part of training them in the classroom, we therefore TVET is all about hands-on training. They therefore be able to get practical experience. So this policy, the dual apprenticeship policy, they give you the opportunity for lay industry players then partner with we, because now they get to absorb some of the young people when they graduate. So if them be part and parcel of the training, then it ensures say we train them in the right way. We give them the right skills the way they need. We don't train them at the classroom, then the lecture rooms, then the dual apprenticeship policy they allow for them go down in industry and get hands-on training in a real life setting. And who knows, that they can go a very long way in increasing that young person in chance of employment within that industry. Another thing what they do, we don't also develop with scholarship policy, granting aid for both national and international. Well, I said develop. There was already one. We not develop. We revise some for they be relevance to what we currently obtain. We get granting aid. We get international scholarship. In the interest of transparency, we don't make sure so we put everything where they take place for them 2 types of awards, and let the general public be aware of waiting we they do within the ministry, the systems and the processes, the way we adhere to what we follow we award and granting aid and also international awards. So granting aid, we don't define the category of students, and now we get for the benefits from granting aid. So female students and we they pursue and course them in science, technology, engineering, agriculture. Agriculture we know it's not the flagship program, and mathematics, because we identify say if traditionally then sectors and then fields and they're historically dominated by men. So if we want for we not play lip service to the GWE Act, we say minimum 30% female representation in leadership positions. We therefore identify now the sector that we historically women they not did and train the women they now so that they will be the future leaders and to within their sector they did. So STEAM now one of them. The STEAM sectors, and so we provide a quota. A defined number of awards then we will be available to female students and for them able access programs then course them within the STEAM field. We also provide access for persons living with disability, because we get for ensure say we do things in a very inclusive manner. I can always say when President Bio appoints me for serve, and not say serve one set of people, he say serve salon. I take up this role for serve salon to go for ensure so we do and through the inclusivity lens, include persons living with disability, let themselves get the skills the way they need for contribute positively to society. Then we get other sectors and back who identify, but all things inside this document, it therefore be public document. The second arm of that document is the international awards. We get for we do them in such a way for clarify any misconception or misunderstanding we the general public might get about how they award international scholarship. One thing we are introduced now for ensure say now where we give you when you go through the system and you don't get the international award, the conditions where you agree to, what we advertise, where you apply for, where you agree to, before you go, you sign document. You sign document for saying now this award they give me. So you get them, we said get them in the interest of transparency. Because we not go want let somebody go out there begin say we for do this. We say well not to that day the award being so we for ensure so we do things in the right way. So we don't develop that day back. Another policy we don't develop, we need for finalize an asset policy. How we ensure say we look after we assets within the ministry, but also with higher educational institutions. We develop the national one we for the sector we linked to the asset policy at national level. So they do one now for your higher educational institutions and they would expect them say for develop one in the event where they get one, they revise one for the align, because we cannot work in silos. They can't do one thing, we they do other thing, and we they provide the strategic direction. We also they work for they will develop asset register. For we know the assets where the universities, the vocational training institutions they get, and work with them for they ensure say they maintain their thing they did. Because sometimes the equipment we can cost money, we have to ensure say the lifespan we expand, we ensure say we provide structures and systems so that they will use them for a very long space of time. So then at the policy side, so back to the act I mentioned earlier about the TC Act and the NCTDA Act. We also they work on a technical and high education act. We get for B1 now we na the umbrella. We cover all things. Then the back we work on, and then the dual apprenticeship policy we mentioned we work on the dual apprenticeship bill as well. So then we don't start this year, and we hope say next year we'll be able to finalize them and go through the right systems and then we'll begin implement them. The other pillar where we do things around financial sustainability and how we support complement within governments they do. As I mentioned earlier, governments they invest 22% of the national budget, and that is huge investments that they. In other parts of the world, we can go meet and commend Salon for that initiative they would on, for that thing they would do. But we want for complement waiting governments to do and see how we can able to generate more income, because what we want for do it has cost implications and we need resources for do so. So we don't care we meet with the relevant stakeholders and I believe as I assume office to the August to September we get retreat where we go with NABO with all the university leadership including students and we decide we need to come up with a technical and higher education fund. This fund we define them because the thing we want for be plenty, but we for be very strategic. So we don't define say this fund it will support access, so it will complement the loan scheme where His Excellency been done introduce. It complements research when a core function of higher educational institutions. It also supports infrastructural development because we need infrastructural development. So we don't care that they go parliament, cabinets don't approve, follow set up the technical and higher education fund. We don't get the approval. We work now with the Ministry of Finance for set up this fund and how we get for administer the funds to ensure the accountability there and we get financial management systems. And then we also next year what the plan once we don't get this fund in place, we get for diversify the income streams for this fund. We still define how we get for different income streams. We want to introduce performance-based financing. I don't tell you the 3 things that we the fund get for cater for. One, for introduce performance-based financing, where other countries don't do. And now for ensure say we get quality in the educational systems. I can always say the government value education, free quality school education, human capital development. Continued priority for the government under President Bio in leadership. We want for ensure safe education system. But we can all agree, say we get some young people them we don't learn skills, sometimes from your papa, from your uncle, from your mama, from your auntie, from somebody in the society, from your community. You don't learn how to be carpenter or mechanic, or you do cook you in a ketka, but you know one day go not to school you learn. So what would they do now with UNDP? And for work with the informal, that's not the informal sector. What would they upskill them? Would they give them skills and they will certify them? So now they get skills, they get certificates for say, this we don't upskill them, we don't certify them. We will not stop there. We work now with local content agency. We then don't add their names in there. We do 100 as a pilot program. 50 na Freetown, 50 na Makeni. Freetown na being heating and air conditioning, ventilation. Now we train them in. Then it's an Akenema, it's you na building and construction. So now they hold their names and then they are the local content agency database. So if anybody come, say they want set up industry, they want skilled young people, then when they're gonna look at local content agency, their name is in DDD. So they will able get employment and then recognize their qualification, their skills that we don't acquire, we don't upskill them and certify them. All two they do, we know they work in silos, they identify the relevant ministries, departments and agencies, follow, implement and say so together. For example, we work with the Ministry of Communication, Technology and Innovation in the area of ensuring digital skills training, providing the enabling environment for able for access the learning materials online. We work with the Ministry of Employment, Labour and Social Security to ensure say the labour market survey they're able to give you the outputs from the exercise what they do. We work with the Ministry of Youth Affairs because they support the government agenda. We get youth employment scheme, we get for support them. So these are some of the things that we don't do within the ministry, and the gain, as I say, we build upon the gains them already made within the sector. We don't forge strategic international partnerships them, like the one I mentioned for UNECA, National Skills Development and Corporation in India, with Times Higher Education. We go help we for strengthening with systems within we universities and at the same time support the government agenda. And also, for example, UNDP and other partners I want to mention, we don't begin engage with them one day because traditionally they don't support this ministry yet, but now we work with them. UNDP, for example, a pilot program I mentioned, but now we see how we can develop a bigger proposal. So that's what we do within the Ministry of Technical and Higher Education.
And of course, that was Minister of Technical and Higher Education, Dr. Ajayi Ramotulawomi. Now to infrastructural development, which is also an integral part of the Big Five Game Changers agenda of this government. The Nursing and Midwifery Council says in 2024 the council expanded its service across the country by ensuring it produces professional nurses and midwives that will improve the health sector. Registrar Nursing and Midwifery Council Christiana Masale spoke about the council's activities in the year under review 2024.
So in 2023, we are our bill was enacted into Parliament that led to the transformation of this board to a council, and to tell the world, the people of Sierra Leone, that we have now formed a transition committee is working helter-skelter to transform the board into council. We've met several times and so many suggestions are coming on board. I want to say thanks to them for the hard work. Again, in the history of Sierra Leone, we now have a registered nursing program that is being implemented in the rural area of western area. So we never had a school in the western area. So we inspected that. We inspected the one school. So many of them. One made it. One was able to successfully pass our monitoring tool, which is so objective. And that school is now in operation. It is called the Ahmadiyya School of Nursing, Western area. It is located in the 55 area. So it is a school, it's the newest school that we have established as a council. So we need people to assist us to make sure that standards are being maintained in that school. Apart from that, one key achievement for 2023 is the alignment of our code of ethics and also the alignment of the curricula that we have as far as nurses and midwives are concerned. So this job or this work was spearheaded by West Africa Health Organization. So we went there more than 3 times this year. We went to Togo, we went to Benin, and recently we are coming from Abuja. So they have now aligned the code of ethics. You know, in nursing, when we say nursing, it is discipline. And so there are now sanctions for nurses with negligence, for nurses that do not go to work. So many spheres of sanctions are now being laid down by West Africa Health Organization. They are now cleaning it, so they will bring it to individual states. That one is not just for Sierra Leone. All the 16 member states we are called. All the 16 member states in West Africa, we are all called. Each time that you go, all of us will be there to align the code of ethics and the curriculum for nursing and curriculum for all health specialties, not only for nursing. And one good thing about that curriculum that we have aligned with other member states is that the content of that curriculum is the same. For Guinea, it's the same for Senegal, it's the same for Ivory Coast. Once you are in West Africa, the content of that curriculum is the same. The reason behind that is that I can start my nursing in Sierra Leone and I want to conclude it in Ivory Coast, or Senegal, or Mali, or Chad. I can go there and get it concluded. We can adapt it to individual countries, but the content of the curriculum remains the same. But that's what we will be in all member states to introduce that to our countries as per schedule. So the other thing we have done as a council is that we are now set to be awarding. This is now for next year. We have just been inspecting schools. When we go in, we inspect you. We use our objective monitoring tool that we use to monitor before accreditation or before you are allowed to implement whichever program. So after that, we are given partial accreditation, then full accreditation. That is no longer on our agenda. Now what we are planning to do in 2025, we are going to visit all institutions. All nursing and midwifery institutions are going to be visited, inspected, assessed. And when you are successful, we will give you accreditation for 3 years. And each year, the council will visit, we go to that school at least twice. At least twice each year until the 3 years is ended. So at the end of the 3 years, we will go in again to inspect. If you are not up to date, your accreditation will be removed from you. It will be withdrawn. So that is what the council has planned to do for next year. And again, we want to be part. To be part with that accreditation. It's not just going to be accreditation. We will go again to do indexing together because we are having a lot of challenge that I can't.
A place cannot produce poems. It can only not prevent them. And Freetown is good at that, for Freetown has its own sudden elegances. People are slow to leave it, quick to return. And there are others who come for a year or two and stay for a lifetime, sensing that they found a city that is in the world, yet sufficiently on the edge of it to have a different resonance. Let me tell you something about this city. All of us, we're all just passing through, and we've all been here forever. Those who came, those who stayed, those who never returned. Tides turn, seasons change, we've waited and we've watched. But we've always been here. We've always listened, because there is a different resonance here. It comes from the river, and the land, and the sky.
It's our place, all of us.
This city belongs to everyone.
And you know when it's your time.
And it's our time.
Listen, we are Freetown.
The golden rules of Freetown.
Don't pretend you're something that you're not.
Don't go thinking you're better than anyone else.
Or that anyone else is better than you.
Don't shout about it. Get on with it.
We are Freetown.
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 Yeah.
We found our voice again.
I'm from India and Freetown.
I'm from China and Freetown.
I'm from the UK and Freetown.
I am from Nigeria and Freetown.
I am from home and Freetown.
This city belongs to everyone.
The fishermen,
the taxi driver,
the barber,
the drummers, the dancers.
All of us.
All of us. Everybody. We are Freetown.
The past is ours.
The future is ours. It's our time again.
And this city belongs to everyone.
The playwright,
the greengrocer,
the teacher,
the dog.
This space is ours.
This light is ours.
The beaches are ours. The rivers now we own.
The roads are ours.
The bridges now we own.
We are Freetown.
We are all visitors and we've all been here forever.
We've got the mightiest river.
And the biggest sky.
And there's a resonance again.
Freetown. Freetown.
We are proud of this place.
We love this city.
And we want you to love it too.
We are proud of this place.
Na pass we all dey pass like stranger dem, but we all don dey from ten. Come here, and you'll feel it, that end of the line sense of freedom. Say yes to Freetown. Say yes to freedom.
We are the national broadcaster, and I am Sulaiman Baba Toure, a reporter and presenter at the SLBC. Your voice, my voice.
From the commercial department, I am Regina Bangura. You are watching SLBC. Your voice, my voice.
I am Jonathan Turner, a reporter for Silent Broadcasting Corporation, SLBC. As a reporter, I do stories on education, health, politics, and more. Stay glued with SLBC to watch my stories. Your voice, my voice.
Lucian Ganda, producer Weyus, and producer and presenter Christian Editions on TV. This is the SLBC.
I am William Wise, presenter Weyus and also reporter at